is exactly.
Madam Mayor, it's 6 o'clock.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this Tuesday, July 17th, regular City Commission meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Let's do the dramatic entry.
Or gavel?
Oh. Mayor Pam Triola,
Here.
Vice Mayor Andy Amoroso.
Here.
Commissioner Scott Maxwell. Commissioner Omari Hardy.
Here.
Commissioner Herman Robinson. Thank you.
If everyone would please rise for the invocation or moment of silence offered on behalf of the Vice Mayor, followed by the pledge led by Commissioner Robinson. A moment of silence, please. Commissioner Robinson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Looks like a jackrabbit on this thing.
Thank you. Additions, deletions, reordering?
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor?
From consent agenda, I'd like to move K, N, P like Paul, and Q like Queen, please.
K.
N like Nancy. P, Q like Queen.
K, P.
K.
What are they again?
Move K, N, P, and Q.
Correct.
Addition,
I'll entertain.
excuse me. Additionally, Madam Mayor, there were three resolutions that had, one of them, I inadvertently put the wrong resolution in the agenda packet. That was the corrected one was sent out yesterday. Today, we had two resolutions that one couldn't be finalized until after the meeting last night. And the other one, we just got the figures from the bond council. So those have been added. They're at your dais and they're also in the back of the room.
So that's two consent agenda, item B and E.
B,
And E.
E, and
K, N, P, and Q.
right. That's it.
So those are going to, so items B and E are correcting the items from the consent agenda, and none of those were the ones that were moved to new business. So I'm moving to new business are K, N, P, and Q. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to.
Second? Actually, it was moved by the Vice Mayor, seconded, then. Do you second the motion?
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 4-1. Commissioner Maxwell. All right. Moving to presentations, we have a proclamation declaring July 2018 as Clean Energy Month.
She, her name is right
Emily?
in front of it, Emily Gorman.
Is Emily here? Emily Gorman? Hello, welcome, and come on down.
Oh my gosh.
on here. I shall read this to you with my many whereases. Whereas the city of Lake Worth understands America's need for clean energy to move our economy forward by providing opportunities for investment, and the clean energy also makes our communities cleaner, healthier, and safer. And whereas the city of Lake Worth has demonstrated its commitment to clean energy, excuse me, my cough drop, with the construction of a 2-megawatt solar farm and a partnership with the Southeast National Marine Renewable Energy Center. And whereas the city of Lake Worth can greatly benefit from the positive economic impacts of clean energy research, development, and generation. And whereas in Florida, clean energy creates jobs, fosters economic growth, and helps businesses cut costs. And in an effort to protect the state's infrastructure, Florida's coastal communities are investing millions of dollars to adapt to rising sea levels. And whereas, in order to unleash clean energy's full potential for our country, we need to expand economic opportunities for innovators, entrepreneurs, and investors who drive clean energy technology breakthroughs and provide regulatory certainty that allows the private sector to plan for and invest in clean energy. And whereas by embracing clean energy, we can help America regain its place as the world's leader of innovations that revolutionize entire industries, drive economic growth, and create more green jobs, improve health and living standards, and boost economic growth in the coming years. Now, therefore, I, Pam Triolo, Mayor of the City of Lake Worth, Florida, by the virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim July 2018 as Clean Energy Month. And now, something special too. Our Recreation Sponsorship Recognition Awards. Ms. Lauren, come on down.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Commissioners. Lauren Bennett, Assistant Director of Leisure Services for the record. Here with me, I also have our lovely recreation staff. We wanted to have a little bit of a feel-good before your meeting tonight. Our goal as a recreation division is to never turn away a child in our community due to financial constraints. This is made possible due to our generous donors such as our Lake Worth Rotary and Dave Palumbo from Dave's Last Resort. They donate annually, and thanks to their donations, we're actually able to grow our programs, especially our summer camp program. With Rotary's donations, we're now up to 45 kids from 30 last year.
Wow.
So I know that they don't get to see the fruits of their labor, but this is just a small token of our appreciation. They're really making a difference in the lives of our kids, and it's really appreciative from the staff level because we get to see the difference that it makes. Dave, if you could come up here. We'd like to present you with
Get on up here,
an
you.
award.
The mayor's coming down.
Should we go up there?
Smells like chicken wings in here.
You want some, don't
Yeah, I do.
Is that Pittsburgh orange?
It's Pittsburgh. No heckling the guests. What's your name?
Is there anybody here from Rotary? No, they're on their way. Well, we have a really pretty plaque for them, so we'll give it to them later.
Take a picture with them.
Yeah.
Or
It's not a picture to Miss Reeves there.
All right.
Are you now in charge time? Are you in charge time now?
For a moment. Moving on, Commission Liaison Reports and Comments, starting with Commissioner Maxwell.
Okay. I really don't have much this evening other than I want to thank those of you.
Microphones are very,
I said I don't have much this evening other than I want to thank those of you in the community who've offered your prayers and thoughts for my family this past week. We've had a pretty tough week with the loss of my brother, and I just appreciate all the kind words and the thoughts and the prayers for my family. So thank you. That's all I have for tonight.
thank you. Commissioner.
Sure. One of the things I did was I visited the new principal at Highland Elementary. She's very highly regarded. She actually comes from high school. And I was very excited to meet with her and talk about some of the challenges that they're facing and some of the opportunities that they plan to capitalize on. So I look forward to good things happening there in the future. So.
Vice Mayor?
A couple things. Evening on the Avenue has sunsetted for the summer. We're working on, and staff's doing a great job. We'll be bringing back Evening on the Avenue bigger and better next year, starting in October. It'll actually be on Lake Avenue this year, starting in October between Dixie and Federal. We're bringing in the car shows. There'll be bands, there'll be food trucks, bigger and better. So we're hoping that promotes the downtown and brings a little bit more livelihood to the avenue from the plaza. And then we're also looking at moving the food truck invasion from a Monday night to the last Friday of the month. So that'll be rejuvenation for the downtown starting in October, and then we'll continue on with our holiday events and Halloween and all that fun stuff. I attended Palm Beach County League of Cities, which I was very happy to be reappointed to their board. I also want to thank Mayor Ann Gerwit from Wellington. She reappointed me to the Florida League of Cities, so Lake Worth will be at the table. Our regular Sober Home Task Force, I reported last meeting that it was sunset. However, the Sober Home Task Force will still continue to do all the great work that it's doing in the cities. The Proviso Board continues to meet, so I'll be attending the Proviso Board tomorrow at the Sheriff's Department, and I'll report back on those issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Robinson?
Just congratulations to all the participants in the raft race. City was very competitive, and I think that next year we'll give a trophy to Parrot Cove at the beginning of the events. Look forward to the visioning session that we're going to have on the 24th, and the casino possibilities on the 7th of August. And I want to thank all the staff and welcome our new finance director to come up with a workable budget. I know the city manager is good at it, so look forward to it.
Thank you. And just a quick reminder, the TPA, which is formerly known as the MPO, which is formerly known as the Metropolitan Planning Organization, basically the people in the county who make all the decisions on where the money for roads go to. That meeting has been changed. Actually was canceled for this month. So, and normally they don't have a August meeting, so we won't resume that until September. The projects all so far that I've mentioned in previous meetings are all still on tap. Funding is still there. Nothing's been taken away. In fact, we've actually been pushed up a little bit time-wise for the Park of Commerce, and good things are happening. So I'll keep you posted in the next meeting on that. And I just wanted to myself, I know that Commissioner Maxwell mentioned that, but I wanted to have my own moment of silence. I was going to do it at this time for his brother, if you wouldn't mind me taking that, just to offer more prayers, because I know that families always need extra prayers at that time. If you wouldn't mind, just one or a moment of silence. Love and prayers to you, family.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. All right. Public participation of non-agenda items and consent agenda items. I see a lot of new faces out there, so I just want to kind of give you the skinny. This is the section that has been increased to 3 minutes. You used to have 2 minutes time to talk for this. Now you have 3 minutes time for public participation of non-agenda items and consent agenda items. When I say non-agenda, that means anything that isn't coming up later in the meeting and you want to talk about it, this is the time to talk about it. If it's coming up later in the meeting, then you have to fill out a separate card for that. Also, when you come up to stand, if you wouldn't mind, please stating your name, full name, and address, because that's needed for public record. So state your name and address, and then make your comments. No profanities, nothing, nothing horrible, and just be respectful and nice to one another, and get your point across and do what you need to do. But that's pretty much how that works. And again, fill out another card if you have something for an agenda item later on. The only thing on the agenda that you can comment on that's written is the consent agenda. And remember that items K, N, P, and Q have been moved to be addressed individually. So you can actually put a card in for those, K, N, P, and Q. If you had concerns about any of those items on the consent agenda, you can now put in a public a comment card for an actual item that will be discussed later in the meeting. Got it? And those times when you come up later, it's 2 minutes. So don't think we're messing with your time. All right. Don't forget the address. Let's go. Richard Guercio, followed by Kathy Turk.
Madam Mayor, Richard Guercio, 720 South Conway. Just want to talk about last night, the budget, a couple of things that went down. I hope everyone got the math, what happened last night. If you do increase parking rates by $1, the beach fund is solid. It's an extra $437,000 a year in excess, which then puts the reserve in the beach fund, the 3 months that are necessary, back in 22 months. So that's a good thing. I think you need to look at that and decide how you're going to work the cash flows. $400,000 for the repairs may not be able to come out of that, but certainly it puts the beach fund on the right track by raising rates. I want to talk about the last meeting that I wasn't able to stay for. When we were talking about the use of penny sales tax at that time. I do recall when we were having the penny sales tax meeting last year, it was in July, and I remember the city manager at this last meeting, when we were talking about the parking garage, said there was consensus. The only person that said it first in their list, he prioritized penny sales tax, the 5 of you did. The only one that had it first on his list was Commissioner Amoroso. It came out to an average of 2.7 on your list. You had a third, you had a third, you had a third. So it wasn't the priority in there. City attorney cautioned you that night that we needed to stick to the ballot language of the bond, not the state statute, because it was a tighter thing. We had the same conversations in the Finance Advisory Board meetings with the city attorney when we were discussing what to do with penny sales tax. And the ballot language did not allow for the purchases of land for future use. It was a great idea that then Vice Mayor Maxwell had, but city attorney cautioned us against that, and again in the Feb. Agreeing to do that, to fund the money through the CRA, to buy those 4 pieces of property for a parking garage. I don't know if the city attorney has changed its opinion or not, but it hasn't been done publicly. So it seems to be going against the opinion of the city attorney given you as far as buying land for future use, going against the ballot language not being included there, but going along with the state statute. Now, I spoke to the executive director of the League of Cities, Richard Radcliffe, about this specifically. That he said the 38 cities attorneys are doing things differently. Some are doing as ours, being conservative to the ballot language. Others are extrapolating the ballot language to mean more. Others are then looking at statute, and then others are still looking at statute and extrapolating further out. They're not policing that sort of thing. So if we're doing it, that's fine. I don't understand the need to funnel it through the CRA rather than us doing it directly with the penny sales tax money. So it's just a little note there. Just curious as to if there's a change in opinion, great. If there hasn't been, I think there just needs to be some clarification. Thanks.
Thank you. Kathy Turk, followed by Peggy Fisher.
Thank you. Public speaking is not my superpower, so I have notes. Kathy Turk, 901 North B Street. I'm here this evening to introduce myself and to announce my candidacy. I was born and raised in Southern California. My father was a Teamster, my mother was a homemaker. We had very little money growing up, but my parents taught us to live within our means. They taught us to respect people and nature and that the United States is the greatest country in the world. Since adulthood, I have lived in Arizona, Idaho, Georgia, and 20 years ago, I moved to South Florida. I'm a divorced mom supporting my daughter who's a senior at the University of Kentucky and my son who's a junior at Emory University's Business School. I'm an almost retired business owner. I started CDT in 2001. We do supplemental staffing, project planning, and HR consulting. At the peak, I had 56 full-time benefited employees working for me across the country and 5 in my Boca Raton office. Tragedy struck my family about 12 years ago when my 19-year-old son suddenly passed away. Once I got past the shock and settled into the grief, and got a tattoo, my priorities had shifted. I began to plan to downsize my life, my home, and my expenses so that I could prioritize purpose over money. When I started the search for a new home, I looked in the mountains of Georgia, all through North Carolina, both coasts of Florida, and I considered going back to California. For me, it came down to a few things. I wanted to remain in Palm Beach County. I wanted to be near the beach. I needed 3 bedrooms because college kids do come home. I had a golden retriever and a labradoodle, and they needed to come with me. I was watching Tiny House Nation when they aired the episode featuring Lake Worth cottages. A light bulb went on, and about 40 homes later, I had found my permanent home in Tropical Ridge. Since purchasing my home, I have served on the Planning and Zoning Board. I'm an active member of my neighborhood association, a founding board member of the Friends of Lake Worth Parks and Rec, and a very proud steward of a Dr. Seuss Little Free Library. Some of you know me because I actively opposed a Wawa that was coming 18 inches from my living room window, and others of you know me because I knocked on doors for Omari's last campaign. Since that time, like many of you, I have come to see that our city and my district has been used as a stepping stone and a grandstand. We need and deserve someone who loves Lake Worth and is dedicated to representing and respecting our city and all of its people.
Directed towards me, please.
I never expected to be saying this, but I am running for Commissioner of District 2. Over the next several months, I will share my values and my intentions. I will listen to yours, and together we will build an even greater Lake Worth. Thank you.
Peggy Fisher, followed by Wes Blackman.
Peggy Fisher, 508 North A Street. I'm here to talk about a word that some of you on the dais do not like. That word is transparency, which I think is very important for our city and for you, everyone up there, to be. On the consent agenda for the electric utility section, there is a payment to FERC for a fine. The fine was brought to the Electric Utility Advisory Board last week. My concern is that the backup we received is only part of what was in your packets for tonight and available online. Transparency. I also got to the 360th page of the backup. And when I did, I found on the proposed agenda for the August 7th meeting under new business, item B, something about first reading of an ordinance titled Property Owner Special Assessment Agreement for Utility Improvements. I don't know how many people have heard anything about a special assessment. There's no information about this. And I think before anything, any ordinance, anything about assessing property owners, if that is what this is about, should be in the public domain. Again, transparency. I know there's a lot of things that need to be done, but you have to have the agreement of the people. And I do think transparency is very important, and that sometimes I wish we still had Barbara Jean Weber here to funnel her spirit to all of you to treat each other kindly, because in the last couple months, there have been some very harsh things said that I don't think really should have been said. And my condolences to Commissioner Maxwell.
Thank you. Wes Blackman, followed by Ramsey McLeod.
If you could give it to the secretary. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'd like to use this time to talk about two things. One is a reminder that we have two county pools that are located very close to Lake Worth. One is Lake Lytle, which is off of Gun Club Road, which is about 4 miles from my College Park home, 241 Columbia Drive. Get my address in there. And then the other one is the Recreation Center pool, which is across from the community college, the state college, tucked into John Prince Park there. And that is open from April through September. And this leads me to the second part of what I'm going to tell you, is that while I was using that pool, the recreation pool, the therapy pool, near John Prince Park, Jean Matthews, director of the Palm Beach County Recreation Department, came out to use it during lunch, and I see her on occasion, and she recognized me from the Blue Way Trail Committee. And she said, Wes, you have to know and you have to make people aware of a grant that we have available that expires August 3rd, and we could do it by the mayor's signature and have the commission act on it later, but it could fund the rebuilding of the fishing pier at the C-51 canal. And West Palm Beach is also eligible, so the possibility would be that the two cities could apply at the same time and actually do the work coincidentally. And I know that the West Palm Beach Fishing Club is very anxious to get that open again because it is a very hot snook fishing spot that they haven't been able to use for 2 years. So, passing that on.
Thank you. Ramsey McLeod, followed by Anna Maria Windish Hunt.
Ramsey McLeod, 24 South C Street. The topic I want to discuss this evening is in regards to the road work that's being done in the project in the city. It's the notification that's being provided. Personally, it's been a nightmare in our block, but I'll give you those details in a minute. My main concern is this currently is the format for the notification letter we receive. This is in English, one in Spanish, and one in Creole. Unfortunately, construction has been going on in my particular block or in our area on C and D streets, my block, for the last 2 months since Memorial Day weekend. No notifications have been placed in anyone's doors at any time. We never know what's going on. You come home, there's barricades down the street. It has been a literal nightmare for us.
If you just direct towards me, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry?
They require you to talk to me. That's one of the
Can you
rules.
not hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Oh, okay. So in going through this, I see that the city has inadvertently created a burden for the contractor. It would require them to print out 3 copies of a notification and put it in every mailbox, or excuse me, they put mine in a mailbox, but in their doors, so that, because they don't know what the native language is of the occupants of the dwelling. This is time consuming and cumbersome for the contractor, and that's why they're probably not doing it. And secondly, graphics are beautiful. It's inefficient and not effective for what we need to have as citizens here to know when these projects are coming. So I'm not a whiz at it, but last night I took it upon myself to create this format. Very simple. I don't know where to get the city logo, but you put the city logo up here, you put the bold, you can do English, Spanish, I don't know Creole, but at the bottom you can say C reverse for Creole, and Creole is on the back side. This becomes a single sheet that can be put in anyone's home. It's more efficient for the contractor. Maybe we can get them to actually use it. I'd like to provide it. I don't know who. I've been through almost everybody in the city trying to get issues resolved with this. I have been in deep contact and meetings with Mr. Haskell, who's the project manager from WGI, and Jamie Brown, who's the director of public works. They both received a copy of this. Mr. Haskell responded advising he will try to reach out to city staff. Ms. Brown has not acknowledged any emails or commented on this, so I'd like to provide a hard copy for the minutes to be included. In addition, just to let you know what we've been experiencing, And these issues are all being addressed by Mr. Haskell as well as Mr. Brown, I've been told. They are arriving at 7 o'clock in the morning and beginning work. Code says they can't start until 8. They have access property on the specific block that I live in. They have not gotten my permission to do so. They have removed custom sidewalk from my home and replaced it. Unfortunately, when they fixed the issues we had with the alleyway on South C Street in the very first block from Lake to First Avenue South, they put a driveway in the alleyway because it was a real issue. They unfortunately measured off that and came all the way down to First Avenue South, creating the height of the sidewalk so high, our properties now are not able to drain. It has created hazards and liabilities. Some sidewalks got removed, did not get replaced. I now have a ramp that goes into my existing sidewalk. My neighbor on the corner, they have not even bothered to try to replace his sidewalk, so that has created a liability and a hazard for his tenants. He's very concerned about that. The issues are being addressed. No notices are being provided. And I'm just asking that the city accept my,
Thank you.
what is
You would
this,
pass it right
example?
there to the city
to
manager.
you.
Thank you very much.
And whoever can follow up and let me know. I have also advised the commission, the city Citizens Oversight Board. The city of Lake Worth has absolutely no liability for any of the work that has to be reaccomplished. And I want to make sure those bills are scrutinized and nobody tries to pad or slip in expenses
Thank you
to
very
get their
much.
losses covered.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Anna Maria Windish Hunt, followed by Ramsey Stevens. That was McLeod. So,
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Commissioners. I'm here to ask, 404 South C Street, Royal Poinciana neighborhood. I'm asking you for a bus to transport 25 children for a couple of hours to do a workshop at Resource Depot. And the date would be August 6th to the 10th. And the local bus that you now use, which you tell me doesn't exist, finishes with their camp on August the 3rd, so there's no conflict. And the email I got back was, does not provide bus transportation to residents. The bus is used for participants registered in city recreation program activities due to liabilities. Now, these kids that I want the bus for are disenfranchised. What our neighborhood's trying to do is to mainstream them, and we're trying to offer them a little bit of something that most kids take for granted. So I just give you an example. There's a little boy, I thought he was about 8 years old, riding around all day long on his bicycle. And I asked one of the other kids, who is that? And he said, oh, that's Brian. I said, well, where's his mother? I see him all the time. And he said, well, there's no mother. I said, well, where does he live? Oh, in that house. Well, that house is 700 square feet and has 8 males living there. Now, he's not at risk with the 8 males, but he is at risk from being on the street and getting street smart. And these are some of the kids. They have 2 parents, if they do. They're both working, so the eldest is watching the little kids. So they really don't have much of a summer. And this is, it was not something I've been attempting to do, but without finances in our neighborhood, I thought, well, you know, it's a dream. So I went to get my recertification for non-for-profit management. I was sitting in a conference room with fundraisers, with directors of non-for-profits, directors of foundations, and a couple of people that are just trying to get the 501c3. And I had to present, otherwise I wouldn't graduate. And I thought, oh, I've got to do this or I'll never get, I've been going through Saturdays. So I did it. And I didn't have the proper forms, but I knew what we had in our community and in my neighborhood. We have 400 houses. I got that right on. And I also knew the people that lived there. So I presented, and at the end of it, they went ahead and took up a donation. I can actually take that many children, but I need your bus.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ramsey Stevens, followed by Brigitte Ford. Earl, sorry.
Good evening. My name is Ramsey Stevens, and I live at 618 South K Street. And in the spirit of Clean Energy Month, I am here as a very happy PACE customer. And I would just like to encourage the city to explore more ways to use similar voluntary special districts to support our general investment needs and opportunities. In particular, I've spoken with several of our fellow citizens who think this might be a really useful mechanism for our much-needed beautification efforts along Dixie Corridor. So I hope this is helpful, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Brigitte Earl, followed by Annie Sandoval.
Bridget Earl from 2215 Vernon Street. I had several items on my sheet today. One is, don't know if it's true or not, but I've heard the North Ball Fields north side is up, maybe considered to be sold again, and I really don't want any park property sold, especially when we need our parks to do stuff for, like she had the young kids or whatever that need. The other thing is, I know there's another property on the west side of Vernon Heights that is supposed to be considered for development for single-family homes. I personally would like to see the same style homes that we already have, even regard what the developer. We had a developer come in and finish 60 homes in our neighborhood at our size, 75 feet fronts and 150. We lose maybe 3 or 4 neighbors to moving out of the state. We lost two in the last 2 years because of death. Other than that, all our homes are owner occupied, and we have the bigger lots, and we stay owner occupied. Smaller homes turn over left and right, end up being rentals, because even though we're getting Lake Cove, I'm not quite sure that it will stay owner occupied like our homes. We have the backyards, people have pools, have places to put their boats, put their motorhomes, everything in our neighborhood. And we would like that to extend to the west side behind Pierce, that 13 acres that y'all are considering to sell, and you had it rezoned for single family homes. We don't mind the homes, and we would also like them to become part of our neighborhood when this comes up to you guys, so that they can, because they're gonna be right there in access to our park that we maintain and pay for. So we want those people, they're gonna be right next to the park, right behind our homes. Why shouldn't they look like our homes? They have to come down the streets near us. That's what we'd like. The other thing, I'm with the lady with the streets. I don't know who's inspecting the streets from the city or whoever, but you got one area over here on M Street where they take the whole street up, put all new things down. You go down A Street and you see those, they take up the sidewalks, and then they start paving over the original center. So I don't know if that's gonna stop our potholes. So I don't know who's supposed to be inspecting to make sure that the streets are all being done uniformly, because I have a funny feeling we're going to have a lot of problems with our streets based on the way that I think there's 2 separate contracts, because I know one of the engineers, and she said there's 2 separate contractors and they're doing it 2 different ways. So I don't know if there's a standard by the thing. So somebody needs to look.
Thank you. Andy Sandoval, followed by Mark Carilla.
Hi, I'm Annie Sandoval. As most of you know, Mark Perilla's mother. I would like to know, how can we get more visibility of the sheriff in South Lake Worth? There's so much going on there, especially with the drug problem. And every time I call, I give my name, I give my address. I mean, they always ask, do you want the sheriff to come to your house? No, I don't want anybody see them coming to my house, you know, when they're gonna go and talk to someone who's dealing with drugs. If we call the sheriff, if I call the sheriff and I say, you've got to get over here, it's in the middle of the street, there are about 6 people all fighting each other, they will come. But if you don't call them, we never ever see sheriff going by. It's and it's with most of the people. And because I'm Mark's mother, everybody comes to me now. We also have a bit of a problem with children who have been stealing packages from in front of homes. They go through people's, and the sheriff can't do anything about it, apparently. They said, we can't arrest children. What do we do with these kids from the 3rd grade who are coming by, stealing packages and mail from people? And then the sheriff and I didn't get along very well because he wouldn't, he said there was nothing that could be done, and I insisted something had to be done. And I made sure something did get done because I had to threaten that I was going to call my grandson, who's also law enforcement. He'll tell me what to do with this. And then the sheriff responded to what I was saying. He took the report, and I got in touch with the person who was robbed. They weren't home, and I think they got their stuff back. But just because they're children, I don't want to be a victim to 3rd graders. You know, taking property that people have paid for from in front of our homes. And I thought the sheriff could at least, I told him where the school was from. I had a witness who knew the kids. He could have given them and told them where they live. We know what school they were going to. And I would imagine the sheriff could have gone to the school to talk to the principal, talk to the kids, let them know that they're committing a federal crime and that nobody can do anything about it. I don't understand that. Please.
Thank you.
Help.
Thank you. Mark Perilla, followed by Mary Lindsay.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Mark Perilla, 1011 South D Street, Mom's address. Of all the feelings and emotions that I've been coping with since June 28th, when my mother called me and told me that she heard 6 gunshots very close to her home, and turned out somebody was murdered 2 homes from my mother, Pam. And she went out there to console the mother and the grandmother. We have a disconnect on the South Side, Mayor, because if somebody who doesn't live in the city any longer, who is only coming mostly once a week, sometimes if I'm too busy, twice a month to take Mom to lunch or dinner downtown and see the city I love so much, but I still watch you online and I still admire some of the decisions you make and cringe at some of the others, and that's okay because that's what makes this city beautiful. But I hear nearly an hour drive from Parkland to implore your special attention from all of you on the South Side. Please, I am witnessing homes when I drive by at 3, 4 in the afternoon with doors open and people walking in and out like they have a permit and a license to sell what they're selling from these drug homes. Within a stone's throw from my mom's house, there have been several shooting murders. I'm begging you, I don't want to beat a dead horse. I'm not here to criticize anybody. I'm here to say, what are we going to do from today, this moment, moving forward? Can we please get creative? Can we please? I was speaking to someone I admire who said when he was captain and so he would get a lead like mine, when a resident concerned and was daring enough to go on public record and come to a city commission meeting and give his name and address and point out drug houses to fight this cancer, he would back it up by going with full force of resources just to introduce himself. Bunch of cars and forensic techs and everything. Hey, just wanted to introduce ourselves. Welcome to the neighborhood. We hear there's some issues. Here's my card, let me know. So they're put on notice. We have to get creative. It's what the usual protocol, quid pro quo, it's not working. When I'm telling you, somebody who doesn't live in the city, who doesn't traverse the city daily anymore and misses it, is seeing us losing the battle on the South Side, where I go the most because my mom lives there. So I'm looking at you all in the eyes and putting you on notice. And I am sad to say this, but I have spoken to my realtor and she's done a search on my mom's home. Most likely, at this point, I never thought I'd be saying this at a city commission meeting. I am recommending to my mom to sell her home. The Choi family next door is terrified. Wendy Choi who you guys helped this family last year, was walking by that home less than 20 minutes before the shooting. Please, Mayor, Commissioners, I'm begging you, and I'm watching. Thank you.
Mary Lindsay, followed by Maxine Cheeseman.
Mary Lindsay, 327 Columbia Drive. Commissioners, I want to thank you for coming to the PBSO grand opening of their little free library inside District 14 and to announce so that everybody knows, Lake Worth, guys, we did it once again. We have set a new standard. We now have the premier pilot program. PBSO officers on regular patrol have mobile little free libraries within their cruisers that are stocked with the full range of books for all ages, so that whenever our deputies come in contact with kids or even adults, they're able to share a book. We're hoping that this pilot program is such a huge success in District 14 that first it spreads throughout Palm Beach County to all the PBSO offices, and then after that, who knows? You know, at one time there was one little free library in Wisconsin. Now there's more than 75,000 in 80 countries around the world. Wouldn't it be fabulous if every patrol car all over this country and every place else included this kind of a way to improve relations between the public and our law enforcement people and got more people reading? Anyway, I wanted to thank you all for coming. It was great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Yes. We need to see that.
Maxine, welcome back.
Good evening. I mean, good afternoon. I can't remember what it is.
Evening.
Right. I'm Maxine Cheeseman. I'm a candidate for Circuit Court Judge. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to thank you again for all your services to the community. I am running the election for a judicial position for Circuit Court Group 18. And we have 17 candidates, and we have 5 different races and 17 candidates. 3 are circuit, and I'm running for circuit, and 2 for county. Of all 17 candidates, I'm the only candidate in the race that has any science background. I have a master's degree in organic chemistry, several years working as a scientist and hydrogeologist, and as a division director for the South Florida Water Management District. So I understand the environment. I am a lawyer for 13 years and have done several things in the civil division. And I ask you for your vote on August 28th. And I just want you to remember, when you go to the polls, stop, smile, and say cheese. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. Moving on to the approval of the minutes, I'll entertain a motion.
Moved. Seconded.
Moved by Commissioner Maxwell, seconded by Commissioner Hardy. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Consent agenda as amended.
Seconded.
Moved again by Commissioner Maxwell, seconded by Commissioner Hardy. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to our public hearings. City Attorney, would you read the ordinance, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor, ordinance number 2008.
May I take just one quick second? Sure. I just want to remind everybody too that I mentioned in the past that we have, when we're going through our different items, I just want to remind my commission, not the public. You can talk as the 2 minutes on each agenda item, whatever, but I brought in this thing for my kitchen. It's called a timer. And I mentioned in the past an ordinance that was put on the book, a rule that was put on the book. We go beyond 30 minutes on a topic or whatever, and this commission keeps talking for more than 30 minutes. It gets moved to a workshop. So I just wanted to remind everybody that the timer's now on. I'm actually going to officially ask our city clerk if she would actually run the time, because unlike my kitchen timer, I can't stop when public comment happens. And I want to make sure I don't waste any of your time, that you have all the time you need as many people are talking about it, but that our time is left till 30 minutes on any given subject. So because we've kind of gotten into a position where things have gotten a little lengthy and people have not been making their points as succinct as possible, I just want to let everyone know that I am enforcing the rule that was put on the books in, I believe, January of 2013. and I'm going to enforce it starting this evening. So let's move on again to our public hearing. City Attorney, would you read the ordinance, please?
Ordinance number 2018-08 of the City of Lake Worth, Florida, amending Chapter 23 Land Development Regulations, Article 1 General Regulations, Section 23.1-12 Definitions, amending Article 5 Supplemental Regulations, Section 23.5-1 Signs by repealing subsection 23.5-1E12 regarding temporary sign code regulations and adopting a new subsection 23.5-1E12 temporary sign code regulations, amending subsection 23.5-1H exemptions from section regulations, and for the purpose of providing for severability, the repeal of laws and conflicts, codification, and an effective date.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second? Who's here presenting? Mr. Stivers?
Do you want to take some of mine or want me to?
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, briefly, the ordinance you have before you right now is a fix to the temporary sign code. As you know, the U.S. Supreme Court in 2015 had a landmark decision that really looked at the impact of signs and signage and the municipality's ability to regulate those signs. And what they've said in short is that signs need to be content neutral. We can't regulate signs based on the content. We can regulate signs based on size, height, location, etc. So municipalities around the country are now amending their sign code to bring it in compliance with this law. So this is the first step in this process. We'll bring additional amendments forward to you, but this brings us in compliance with the federal law.
Okay. We've got a public comment card from Jackie Delgado. So Jackie Delgado, would you like to speak? Yes. I'm sorry, you have to pull that poor microphone if it's, or you can hold it, it might be easier.
Okay. Jackie Delgado, 1332 Crest Drive. I don't know if this is proper time to talk about, I'm asking for a variance to park my boat. I've lived in Lake Worth for 15 years. Is this the right time?
No.
No, I don't know when it was.
Okay.
Because I've never been here before.
Did it say sign code?
It says 10A.
Is that 10A is
No, this is
about the
9A.
boat?
No, unfortunately.
He'll redo it for you.
He'll redo
Okay.
it. You can come back later.
Okay.
You had written 10A on here, I apologize.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item 10B, ordinance number 2018-9. This is the second reading. Again, we've already had presentations on this, setting a
moved.
moratorium. City Attorney, would you read the official ordinance, please?
Ordinance number 2018-09 of the City Commission of the City of Lake Worth, Florida, establishing a moratorium on the acceptance and processing of applications, the issuance of zoning confirmation letters, business license, development orders, and permits, and any other approvals involving tattoo parlors and their body piercing studios as defined herein for a period of 1 year in the downtown DT zoning district, to be extended if necessary, providing for legislative findings, intent, definitions, early termination, directions of staff, and for the purpose of providing for severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second? Second? For the purpose of discussion, second?
Second.
Second, there we go. We've got a public comment card from Jack Potenza.
Hi, I'm Jack Potenza, 2607 Holy Cross Lane. I think the issue here is even broader than tattoo parlors and piercings. I've been here for over 25 years in Lake Worth. When I came, the downtown was marginal and I saw it deteriorate to a very bad situation. Fortunately, it was rescued by the commission and the city staff. It was reinvigorated, I guess it was the late 90s or so, somewhere in there, and it was wonderful. The business owners there are not getting rich. Many of them sit there day in and day out trying to pay their bills. It's almost like, what can we do to help them to survive? Recently, we've lost a number of key businesses. Hopefully that trend will not continue. Downtown is like a garden. It needs certain fertilizers, and certain plants don't go with other plants. So I think this is a great idea to let's hold back. Let's look at not only tattoo parlors and piercings, but what if somebody wanted to put a storage unit place in the middle of downtown? I have nothing against storage units at all. But like a shopping mall, it's a magnet type situation. The more you have, the more people come, and it multiplies. So our downtown should be a place where whatever goes in there brings even more people and more businesses, and it's got to be healthy. I'm sad when I see businesses go away. I know businesses that are there now, they're losing money, okay? The only one that survive is when the actual owner is there, works there, and can supervise at the same time. There's not enough money to hire a manager in many situations. So I really support this moratorium, and I encourage the commission to broaden it and look at what ingredients can we put to the downtown so that it becomes healthier, because I think it's going to start, it has already started a slow decline, and that includes parking, what businesses should be there, and many other dimensions. Thank you.
Thank you. Got a motion on the floor in a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item public hearing, ordinance number 2018-10. City Attorney, would you read the ordinance, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Ordinance number.
Quiet in the chambers, please.
Ordinance number 2018-10 of the City of Lakewood, Florida, amending Chapter 23 entitled Land Development Regulations of the Code of Ordinance by amending Article 1, General Provisions relating to definitions, amending Article 2, Administration relating to notice requirements for public hearings and permits, administrative use permits, the City's Sustainable Bonus Incentive Program, and planned developments, amending Article 3, Zoning Districts relating to permitted uses, adjustments to residential lots and yards, and defining hotel room sizes, amending Article 4, Development Standards relating to fences, walls, gates, parking and conditional uses, townhouses, off-street parking and vehicular uses, and creating sections related to outdoor storage, solar energy systems, and rooftop equipment screenings, and for other purposes, prime severability, conflicts, codification, and providing an effective date.
So moved.
Second? Need a second for discussion, folks?
Second.
Second on the, we had a lot of discussion on this last time. I think we'll move right to the important issues that are going on in here, because we asked you to come back with the version. I think there were some changes made to the last one. If that, would you mind highlighting the changes that were made in the first reading?
At the last meeting, Commissioner Hardy's motion ultimately was that the ordinance be passed from pages 1 through 28. He omitted section D until he got to page 53, and then he wanted to remove section 2 and approve everything else. That was the actual motion. I think Mark can explain what that means in English.
Okay, and Commissioner Hardy, did you have something you want to ask before?
Before we vote on this, I just want to address the issue about boats, because it's come to my attention that the city commission has apparently given direction to the city manager not to change the ordinance, but to just tell the city manager not to allow our residents to avail themselves of what's currently in the ordinance. So I just want to address that, because I wasn't a part of that decision, but we can get to that.
Okay, what part? I'm sorry, I'm confused.
So the last time we had when Commissioner Robinson and I were out of town in Savannah at a conference, my understanding, per the city manager, is that the city commission directed staff to not allow people to get their variance to store boats in their front yards, provided that they are screened. That's what I was told by the city manager. So I just want to make sure that we address that.
Didn't we have the first reading when you guys were back?
Yep.
You were here for the first reading.
Yeah, we've already gone through that.
That was the first reading.
This is the second reading.
This is the second reading.
This is the final.
There was a first reading when Herman and I were in Savannah. That was the first reading. We had two first readings because there was not consensus at the first reading.
Right, there was I should just let Mark explain what's occurred.
Sure. For the record, Mark Stivers. What occurred, and Commissioner Hardy's correct, at the first meeting, the first reading, there were some significant changes made to the ordinance. Staff was directed to make those changes and bring it back. That's what we presented 2 weeks ago at the first reading of the ordinance. The issue with the boats, briefly put, is that boats are required to be either in the side or rear yard. If they cannot fit there was a process by which you can apply for an administrative relief to park your boat in the front yard, as long as you made certain criteria such as screening, location, it had to be on a hard surface, etc. We were directed at the last meeting to take that administrative variance out of the ordinance altogether. Our first attempt in the first reading was instead to tighten it up a little bit, make it a little more difficult to get, but make it still a possibility. That was taken out. So if this ordinance passes tonight, the issue will be that boats and, let me say, when I say boats, it's recreational type vehicles, including small utility trailers. It'll be RVs, those type of things are not allowed then to be parked in the front yard. The one thing we did discuss, though, is those that have been issued, and we have 8 currently that have been issued an administrative relief. Should we then look at some point at sunsetting those, saying, giving them a period of time to come into compliance and removing those from the front yard as well? That, I believe, Ms. Mayor, we said we'd look at a workshop or at the visioning session so we can really decide what we want to do. So we haven't touched that yet. We're waiting for a clear direction from the commission. But currently now, to be clear, in the ordinance before you tonight is removing that administrative relief. So boats would therefore have to be in the side or rear yard and fully screened from the street.
So I guess what I would like to do, first of all, and my recollection of the last meeting that we had on these LDRs, I guess didn't quite match that. But here's what I think. First of all, we should probably amend what we have in front of us, and that I would like to move to do that, to reinstate the administrative variance process, basically where people can go and get a variance to store their boats in their front yards. If it's possible to put that back in, I think we should try to do that tonight, and then we should remove it only after workshopping it, right? So like if the status quo before we started considering this was that we allowed people to have this process, I don't think we should remove it without having a workshop on that process. I don't think we should workshop putting it back in. We should workshop taking it out.
Okay.
If I may address that, so that we're all very clear, what we're taking out is staff's ability to administratively waive that condition. It does not take away the ability of an applicant to apply for a variance and go before the Planning and Zoning Board or the Historic Resource Preservation Board to apply for that variance through a public process. So the variance would still be allowed, but now be allowed under the typical variance process in a public meeting, no longer just an administrative process by staff.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
May I ask, Mark, would it take longer to go before, being as planning and zoning and historic resources and historic resources and preservation, being as they only meet once a month, would it not take longer for a resident to get some confirmation as to whether or not they would be able to store their boat in their front yard with a screen such as a fence or a hedge if we took that route?
Yes.
Okay. So I see nothing wrong with allowing staff members who are experts, who have been doing this for a long time here in the city of Lake Worth, to figure out whether or not someone can adequately screen their boat, and allowing them to do that. That has been the status quo. I consider it a middle of the road position. I understand that many, even coastal cities in Palm Beach County, do not allow, at least in their codes, boat owners to store their boats in their front yards. This is, I think, again, as I said, middle of the road. We can allow it, but you have to screen it so that people can't see it, or so that it's minimally visible. I think if we're going to change the status quo, we should workshop a change to the status quo. We should not workshop a return to the status quo. And if we can put that again, back in the LDRs, I certainly would appreciate that. And I think the many boat owners who live here on, small lots would appreciate that as well.
City Manager? You move the microphone in front of your face like you want to talk.
Oh, I'm just warming up.
Oh, okay. No, I have a question. First of all, and here's the thing, because I've heard from a lot of people, from emails, phone calls, running into the street, on different sides of this issue, and on every way, shape, and form. It's really difficult when you're in a city trying to create a uniform environment, when you're trying to say, okay, follow the code. The code already existed for a long period of time. And the code has always been written that you can only have a boat that's not in the front setback, it's in the back setback. Anyone who has a variance on a code that allows them to put them in the front setback has been told, and it's written in the rules and the laws, that they need to have a screen of some kind of coverage or a hedge line or something so that the boat isn't visible. People are choosing to put their vehicles, their boats, in the street, in their driveways, in their neighbor's yard, on top of their house if they could at this point. It's all over the place. They know the rules. The rules have been around for an awful long period of time. We're sitting here trying to create some form of semblance and creativity, not to penalize a boat owner or whatever. The rules have been there forever. We didn't create these rules. The rules that we're trying to enforce now are not rules that we created. They've been around a long period of time. And I'd like to know, of the 8 variances of the city, I could probably expect at least 50% of those variances are not shielded by anything, from a fence to a shrub to anything. They're not. the rules are there for a reason. We can create the rules or not create the rules. We can have no rules or we can have rules. I mean, it is what it is. But I'm just saying, you know, we're trying to create some sort of form. If people obeyed the rules and put the shields in front of them and did what they're supposed to do, then we wouldn't even be sitting here probably having this conversation. But it's just, you know, it keeps getting further and further. The boats out in the middle of the roads on the weekends is insanity. I almost hit one the other day. In one area. I mean, just like out in the, it's one thing to have it out there when you're getting off it, cleaning or doing what you're doing, but then it's got to go somewhere. You know, a lot of people pay a lot of money to have a place to park their boat, or a garage, or a storage facility, or something. You can have one on your property, just don't leave it out in the middle of the road. I mean, I like I said the last time around, I was pretty straight about it. You can have it on your property, just don't be able to see it from everywhere. I mean, that's the rules that's been there. You know, I don't see where this gets changed. I didn't create this rule. We're just trying to enforce and create some sort of normalcy. Go ahead, Dan.
I agree that we should enforce the rule that boat owners can't park their boats in front of their houses or in their front yards without a screen. But what this is about, it's about allowing people to use the rules that we already have, right? So in our books, there was a process that allowed people to store their boats in the front of their house the correct way, which is screened, right? And so we shouldn't penalize people, in my opinion, who want to use that process, who have gone through the pain to come to staff, to fill out an application, and to get it done the right way. Keeping this process, keeping the administrative variance process doesn't keep us from penalizing the people who don't want to use it, right? So like if somebody has a boat in their front yard, or someone has a boat on their swell, we can still send code enforcement and we can still violate them, right? But this is for people who want to put their boat in their front yard on a hard surface and who wants to screen it. I don't see why there shouldn't be a process for that. Again, I see it as a middle of the
and again,
the
the process still exists, is exactly what Mr. Stiver said. The process, you can still apply for a variance, you can still go before the board and apply for a variance. The problem is screening means you can't see. Ready? Screening means you can't see. Doesn't mean I can have a 42-foot boat sitting on a 25-foot lot with a screen in front of it that happens to sit 10 feet above the screen. Screening means you can't see. Get it? I mean, it seems like we shouldn't even have to have a conversation about that. That's the rule, that's the law. Vice Commissioner Maxwell.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. Can somebody please tell me what caught the attention of staff that we had to have this conversation in the first place?
I'll take a stab at that, Madam Mayor. The process as you described has been on the books for a long time. There is an administrative permit that allows staff to grant, and there's 8 of them. In looking at the complaints that we were constantly getting from residents and looking at the number of boats and the mismatched boats to the lot sizes and people had permits, nobody had, it became evident that people weren't coming in to get a permit. However, if you looked at what was required in the regulations that now you're asking staff to step into, there's a group out there that hates the fact that people put boats in front of their houses, and there's the boaters who want to have their boats. Now you've put staff in this crosshairs with limited guidance. Okay, and I don't advocate for that. I'd like for some definitive community standards. So staff created an amended list of criteria that provided a lot more guidance and to both people looking for a permit, but also how staff would grant these, so it wasn't willy-nilly. And that's where it went off the rails. And everybody in the community said, well, staff is trying to now eliminate boats in the city. No, if you have your boat legally behind the front line of your house, you're fine. This is for that administrative permit process. So in the frustration of the last meeting, if I recall, y'all basically just pitched it out not to have the administrative process at all. So if you're thinking about bringing it back, and I don't know that that's the case, I would highly advocate going to staff's original criteria, which is very thorough and gives us a lot of guidance.
Staff's original criteria. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I've got a few points. First of all these complaints that were levied against folks that had improperly stored boats, how many of them were cited by code?
Madam Mayor, I don't have the numbers
Were any
on
of
that.
them cited by code?
I'm sure there were. There's been a lot cited by code. I'd have to go back and pull. And sometimes they were cited and people moved the boats and
Well,
it came to compliance.
that's a
so-
beautiful thing.
Correct. But the
That's what happens
complaints
when you get a code
nonetheless
violation.
happen
You
a lot.
fix the violation. Okay. So we have 8 current permit or variances.
Correct.
When was the last one issued?
I don't give you exact date and time, but it would have been about 4 months ago, 4 or 5 months ago.
So in the 100+ years of the city, we've had this, however long we've had this rule in the books, we only have 8 variances.
That currently on the books right now, we have 8, yes.
It doesn't seem like there's a real demand here for that service. My point is, you see where I'm going with this? There's no demand for this. You talked about willy-nilly. Let's talk about Willie for a second. Okay?
Can you move your mic just up?
I don't want to move my mic up.
But we can't hear it.
Is this better? My concern is that the process becomes very subjective when staff gets involved and gets to give a waiver at the staff level for something like this. Okay? I'm not a boater, but I certainly applaud those who have boats. I like going out on boats, but I'm not a boat owner. I get it. There's a love there with their boats, and I don't want to anger the boating community. However, it doesn't make any sense if you live on a 25-foot lot to go out and buy yourself a 40-foot boat and expect the neighbors to warm up to the idea that you're going to park it in front of your house. Okay, so the rules are on the books that prohibit that from occurring. And I don't think that's a stretch or a big ask to ask for a boater. I mean, part of boaters are, generally speaking, very responsible individuals. So there's a very significant investment, and I would dare say that in many cases, the cost of storage, if you will, is part of the boating experience, unfortunately, the cost of owning a boat. So what are we talking about here? Are we talking about people that they're buying boats, they can't afford to store their boats? Is that what the conversation's about? If it is, let's talk about that. Okay, but then and if it's our will to assist folks that can't afford storage so they can store their boats, then how if we're going to make them create some sort of a screening mechanism, if you will, that in of itself is going to be a cost. So I don't know, and then and becomes some. Do we have specific screening provisions that say you have to use a specific material? No. So it's wide open.
It's not wide open so much as it is, we have screening criteria that you must meet, and that's in the landscape section, Article 6. So we don't have specific criteria for boats, but we have specific screening criteria that you have to use a variety of plants, have to be of a certain height, space a certain size, certain height at planting, must reach a certain height within a certain time frame. That's what we have. And so rather than recreating that policy again, we simply point back to it and say, if you have your boat, that's what you have to do.
Let's go back to the mayor's example earlier, living on a 25-foot lot. So I live on a 25-foot lot and I buy myself a 40-foot boat because I can. I come strolling into City Hall, get my application because I want a variance. I want it on a waiver, whatever. I'm going to screen it in. Who's going to tell me I can't do it?
I will, because in that variance process, the boat in the front yard has length restrictions on it. So it's not like any size, any boat. The idea of that process was to allow smaller vehicles to get over a certain size. They have to be moved off-site.
So you have some sort of a schedule, if you will, of dimensions that says certain size boats don't fit in certain size lots?
We say that a boat in the front yard can only be 25 feet long.
That's under the new provisions, under the ones that were taken out. The original provisions didn't have a length, did they?
I'm sorry, 10 feet in height or 40 feet in length.
There you go.
10 feet.
10 feet in height, 40 feet, including the tongue of the trailer, 40 feet long.
Okay. All right.
Across the front of the property? Anywhere in front of the property?
That's what's in the code now,
so
correct?
Are you
That's what's currently in the code.
That's the guidance we're given.
So what can I put on a 25-foot lot? Well, is it possible to put something on a 25-foot lot?
You could put a small, and again, the code is not talking about large fishing boats. It's talking about recreational vehicles. You could park a pop-up trailer on a 25-foot wide lot.
Mhm.
You could have a small utility trailer that holds 1 or 2 jet skis on a 25-foot wide lot, and those would still fall into this provision.
And thank you for reminding us all that this isn't just about boats.
Right.
I think it's important to remember that, and I kind of lost sight of that myself. Here's the other side of this coin. So somebody has jet skis, or they have a recreational vehicle, or whatever the case, and they build this screening mechanism. Well, you know what? I drive by it every day because it's next door to my house. It's an eyesore. It's an eyesore. I know what's behind that screen. It's an eyesore. It doesn't fit in with the neighborhood. I don't. So, what are we doing here? I think we're causing more. Why don't we just stick to the rules and not allow people variances to begin with? I mean, there has to be some reason here. I mean, just like we have an ordinance that prohibits number of cars, don't we?
Not in residential applications, no. You're required to have so many parking spaces. We don't tell a family how many cars they can have.
Well, they're not allowed to park on the grass, are they?
No.
So if we allow cars, we don't allow cars
Right
on
in
the.
the chambers, please.
If we don't allow cars in the grass, why would we allow a boat on the grass?
The boat needs to be parked on a hard surface, so it needs to be either on an extended or widened driveway or a pad for that vehicle.
So it could not be on the street.
It cannot be in the street, and it cannot be just simply parked in the grass in the front yard. It has to be on a pad.
So any of these recreational vehicles, jet skis, or boats could not be parked in front of the house with a screen around it.
They could be parked on a hard surface in the front if as long as it meets the criteria under the current ordinance. Yes, through an administrative variance process.
Okay, thank you.
But the current, the way it's just written is it's in the front. It's not in the front. It's in setback from the house on the side. Is that how it currently reads tonight?
Right now, what we have, again, is you are allowed to have a boat on your property.
Right.
If you park it in the back, you come in the alley, you park it, you can build a garage in the back. You can put a detached garage in the back. You can put it in the back with a tarp over it. You can put it on the side in a carport as long as it's screened. That you don't need our help with. But if you decide that you can't get that recreational vehicle into the back of your property and you want a relief valve to park it in the front between the building and the street, there is a process currently on the books to do that. And that's what we're discussing now, is whether or not we want to add that, take that relief section out of that code and allow people to park in the side and the rear only.
Okay. City Attorney?
I think it might help, and Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, that people still have a variance process through a public process. They don't have, this will take away the administrative process, but they still have a process. So if someone is that recreational vehicle boat owner and they want to make a purchase of a 40-foot boat, which is a sizable investment, you would think that if it takes them a couple of months to get through a process, they will go through that process if it's that important to them. I'm not sure the administrative process is that much quicker. I mean, staff, I'm assuming, will take a few weeks, and the board process may take a couple of months. Is that correct?
It would take, normally if you're going to a board for relief, it takes about 6 weeks from the time you get your application to get it in and process and then on the agenda before the board.
And
Staff,
administratively, if there wasn't the board process, what does that take? About
generally 2 to 3 weeks tops.
So you're talking a 3 week to 4 week difference in time if you're going to be buying an investment. So, you know, I go along with what I think is currently on the agenda, which is you remove that administrative process. If you want to put it back in later with some more guidance for staff, I think that was the concern, that it was kind of willy-nilly, as someone said. I'm not really saying it was willy-nilly, but at least staff didn't have the guidance and direction that they would like to have. So to me, it's kind of, I see a binary choice. You're either going to say staff doesn't have that authority, or staff have that authority with some guidance.
Just a couple of quick points. And again, I want to remind everybody, per the city manager, this kind of got brought to our attention because there were a lot of complaints. So we don't know how many code violations were born out of these complaints. And we don't know how many existing code violations there are, people that have not complied. And I see a lot of people here that know own boats. I don't know whether that they're in that category of under code or not, but geez, I just.
Let's go to public comment.
All right, let's do
Commissioner
that.
Hardy?
First of all, if people are getting complaints about boats, they're obviously complaining about people who aren't complying, right? They're obviously complaining about people who have not applied for and received a permit to park their boat in their front yard on a hard surface and have it screened, because if they went through that process, then there would not be anything to complain about. There would be no legitimate complaint. The other thing is that it appears through Commissioner Maxwell's questioning of Mark that all of the concerns that he had about boats being stored in the front were vitiated. They were addressed completely by the process that was already on the books. Now, we can say that, look, we can have some guidelines for this, but again, I don't see what was wrong with the status quo. If we got complaints about people who were breaking the rules, not using the process that we put into the rules to allow them to store their boats in the front part of their property. If it's on the front and it's screened, that means you can't see it. That means you can't complain about it. So evidence of like complaint is itself evidence
several
of
of the complaints that
non-compliance.
came in were regarding people who were granted an administrative variance and how their boat was parked and what the neighborhood felt was inappropriately screened.
May I ask you, did the boat owner follow the rules?
The boat owners had come in and asked for administrative variances to allow their boats to be parked in the front yard. The neighbors complained that they did not feel that those boats were appropriately screened, and because the guidelines under which staff can issue the variances are rather subjective and not very specific, we have had several of the variances issued by prior staff and that did not completely screen the boat in the front yard. One of them is actually screened by 3 palm trees.
So can't we just change the guidelines? Why wasn't
Well, that's
the
what
move?
we're supposed to
That's what
do.
we did the first time.
And we were asked to take it out.
Well, we should accept the proposals that you gave us rather than asking you to take out those proposals. Am I so people used a process. The process wasn't specific enough, right? That yielded complaints. Then they came and tried to fix the process, and we said, no, we don't want you to fix the process. We want you to throw it out. Is that basically what happened?
That's how we got to where we are today.
So rather than asking you to throw out the process, why can't we just accept the proposals that you made to fix the process? Rather than throwing it out, why not just accept the fixes that you made to it?
If I offer this, I don't have a problem with those recreational vehicles being properly parked in a front yard should they follow the rules. And to be honest, due to the intensity of some of the public comments we have, I don't have a problem with that being decided at a board meeting and not just put on staff. Because then staff then becomes a lightning rod saying, hey, I didn't want my neighbor to have a boat in the front yard. Why did you allow it? I'd rather let that, anything that's controversial like that, I like, no offense.
Spread the love.
Share the love and let somebody else take some of the beating. And let your appointed board members then make that decision. That's what they are appointed for. So I have no problem at this point allowing this to be done through the typical variance process, and that is when staff really should have the authority to administer the code as written. And relief should be granted, generally speaking, most relief is granted at a board or commission level. So staff then, we follow the code. Now we grant some little bit of relief here and there. We can loosen up, or there's some wiggle room and some flexibility in the code, and I think that's good. Because there's often just you're missing by a small bit. When you're asking for if I can use the term, a use relief, that to me is not inappropriate to go to a board for approval. So I hear you, and I hear what you're trying to get to, but I don't have a problem with that, taking a few extra weeks and going before a board for approval. And then the conditions will be site-specific to that case, not just a set list of written conditions. Some might be easier to screen than others. Some might take more creativity to do it. I like the idea of the ability to then assign specific conditions to each case without really setting a precedent or setting a generic standard. So if that would be amenable to the board, I think we could do that for now. Let's try it, and if we have problems, codes, like I've always said, are somewhat liquid. They can be changed. If we don't like the direction it's going, we can make that amendment later.
I mean, to piggyback on that, I think one of the concerns from a staff standpoint is those neighbors that come after the fact and say, he got this administrative variance, I didn't know about it. And so that's your whole transparency. So if you're having a public process, the public, the neighbors can come in and say, we support this, we oppose it. Instead of after the variance been granted by staff, even if they have some specific direction, you're still eliminating that ability of the neighbors to come in and say, we support, we oppose. And I think that's probably one of the biggest drivers in all of this is let everybody have their say in front of a public body instead of just the applicant, who is only one side of the story then.
And I think too, one of the reasons why when you said it came first and then we changed our mind was because some of the criteria that you had was so specific that many of the situations that people came here and had questions about was because their boat was a half an inch bigger than the criteria that you listed, or was a half a foot away from the side of the building, which again, you know what I mean? That's why we want more leeway in the process so that you're not sitting there tying up the whole process because of a quarter of an inch of the size of a boat or whatever it may be. But we want to have rules. I mean, basically, it's the rules and they need to be followed, and people are. People wouldn't be complaining about it as if they were following the rules. You know, 3 palm trees in front of a 25-foot boat is not going to shield that boat from the public. Again, can you see it? Can you not see it? Is it a shield? Is it being shielded? Is it not being shielded? It's been on the books for a long time, folks, and it's called courtesy to your neighbors in regards to it. And I think if people just don't push it and leave it out in the moat and flush it down the Lake Worth drainage pipe when you're done riding it.
5.5 minutes left.
Thank you. Well, we're going to go to the 5.5 minutes does not pertain to the audience, and I have a giant stack of cards that I can't wait to read. Come on down. Make sure you mention your address. Barbara Reeve, followed by Antonio Vitiello.
Barbara Reeve, 525 North Palm Way. I'm going to read you a letter that I sent to each of your commissioners and mayor, and thank you for hearing me today. I'm here to express my concern about the proposal to eliminate the variance for boat parking in the front of a homeowner's property. If a front driveway is the only place a homeowner can park his or her boat, then a variance should be an option. The city of Lake Worth makes it easy for residents to get out on the water. There's a lovely boat ramp, low-cost annual boat ramp passes, kayak launch, floating docks, and plenty of boat trailer parking. This is as it should be. Lake Worth is a waterfront boating community. Residents should be allowed to park their boats on their property. I like boats. I don't think they're an eyesore. I know others may not agree. Not everyone may like the purple house down the street, but as long as the house is in good repair and the lawn is maintained, the city stays out of the homeowner's business. The same should be true with boat owners who choose to park their boats on their property. The purchase of a boat is a major investment. In some cases, the decision to own a boat may hinge on the ability to keep it on one's property. I'd probably sell my boat if I could keep it on my property. That would mean I wouldn't need to buy fishing gear, or outboard motor oil, or even a new motor from Tuppence or other retailers. I've had no need for marine mechanics, electricians, or detailers. Boaters make a positive contribution to local business and the economy. In fact, the recreational boating industry has a $10.3 billion, with a B, annual impact on the state of Florida. The current variance is well thought out. It doesn't protect derelict boats. It only applies to the current vessel. It includes size and height restrictions and screening requirements. It mandates parking still be available for at least 2 vehicles, so street congestion is taken into consideration. It's only available if the homeowner has no other option to park his or her boat on the property. And there's also a $250 application fee. I hope the commissioners find that the variance should remain a part of the city code. We're a boating community. Let's celebrate it, not penalize it. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Antonio Vitiello, followed by Mary Lindsay. Antonio? No? Mary Lindsay, followed by Jack Potenza. Mary Lindsay? No. Jack Potenza, followed by Joe O'Connor.
Hi, Jack Potenza, 2607 Holy Cross Lane. Primarily, I'm here regarding the waterfront property owners group. Wanted to thank Planning and Zoning, Mr. Stivers and staff for implementing changes that were suggested by the Commission and the Lake Worth waterfront group. You did almost a perfect job, but there was one minor thing that may seem minor to you, but to us it's not so minor. It was indicated at the last 2 meetings that the part about page 19, ordinance 2018-10, regarding the definition of water yard, it would be measured from the At present, it says it would be measured from the landward side of the bulkhead to the building. Twice it was said that that would be changed to the seaward side of the bulkhead. I think this was an innocent mistake. I would grade planning and zoning at 98%, and they can get 100% if they just changed back to what they said they were going to do. I think it was an innocent mistake, but it should say the seaward side of the bulkhead. Bulkheads range anywhere from 2 feet to 6 feet. My particular one is close to 6 feet as a sidewalk also. So it is significant to some people. But again, I want to thank the efforts of planning and zoning and the commission for the changes they did make. Thank you.
Thank you. Got that, Mark?
Got it, thank you.
Thank you. Joe O'Connor, followed by Jackie Delgado.
Hi, my name's Joseph. Hello, my name's Joseph O'Connor. I live at 711 South Palm Way. I have a 22-foot Donzi. It's a really nice boat, really clean boat. My neighbors have no problem with it being in my driveway. I've lived at my residence 13 years now, maybe 14 years. I think being a boating community, we should be all able to keep our boats in our front yard if they look good and they're not a bother to our neighbors. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Jackie Delgado, followed by Chip Guthrie. I recognize you.
Jackie Delgado, 1332 Crest Drive. And what I wanted to ask for was the variance, because I already went to speak to the code enforcer. I had a meeting with them, and I've had my boat there for 15 years. We've lived in the same house, parked in the same spot for 15 years. And now we got a violation, notice. And they said to come to the meeting, speak to you guys about it. We're willing to put up a fence. I've already contacted 2 fencing company to come out and look. Now the problem is the boat, if I put up a fence, if it's plush with the house, then I can't put the boat all the way back. I need the gate to be a little bit further up from the garage sticks out further than the side of the house that I want to put the boat there. So either I get a variance for the gate to, from planning and zoning, which I already contacted by email today about moving the fence, further up against from the garage side, which sticks out more than the side of the house where the boat is going to go. I can't put the boat on the side of the garage, even though it's longer, because it's too narrow. And like I said, we've had a boat ever since we've lived there for 15 years. My family enjoys it. My husband goes fishing. This is why we live where we live. It's near, the boat ramp. We pay for our boat, our insurance, fishing license, everything we need to do. So we're just asking to leave our boat where it is.
Thank you. Chip Guthrie, followed by Tammy Panza.
Chip Guthrie, 823 South Palm Way. I live in South Palm Park Historic Neighborhood. I'm a member of the Historic Resource Preservation Board. I've lived in the same house for about 35 years. Do not own a boat right this moment, but I have probably, I think around 6 that I've counted in the amount of time that I've been there. I remember many years ago, this same issue was brought up. I believe that the ordinance is kind of, is a little too harsh because we are a waterfront community. I did a real quick poll, and it's pretty obvious on there. The poll came back and said to allow to be parked on a driveway on your own property within sight of the street. 77 people voted for that. One boat on a trailer, 12 people. That was for both, either a RV and a boat, or just a boat. One boat was 12. So you have 89. Neither, we had 14 votes, and one RV, we had one RV only. We had 3 votes for that. It's probably pretty close to what I would imagine that the comments went on the Facebook as well. We are a waterfront community. Lake Osborne, the C51 Canal, the Intercoastal, Lake Worth Beach. We do have, that's been mentioned over here. The ordinance should really probably follow along with what we allow on people's driveways now. It should be something that if it is properly maintained, doesn't have flat tires, a tire that's got a tag on it that is currently registered, a boat that is registered, and is not an eyesore to the neighbors. If you can come in front of this board and ask for a variance, and you get all of your neighbors over there say, we have no problem with the boat in this guy's property. I've parked my boat sort of alongside along the house, and there are many more people in the South Palm Park neighborhood that enjoy boating and have boats in their yard visible from the street. And I urge you to reconsider the ordinance in total, but definitely allow a variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Tammy Pianza, followed by Bridget Earl.
Tammy Penza, 116 North Hill. I'm for continuing to allow a variance. I'm also really want to take this one step back and say we really need to workshop this issue, and it wasn't workshopped. I was at the first two meetings. I'm confused. I read the backup. Still confused. You guys were confused. What did I just pass? I think that was what went around after the first reading. Not quite sure how it goes, but this should have been workshopped. As far as variances, I believe the confusion comes because the law isn't written clearly. I believe also this is the time when we change the law, amend the law, go over the law, make sure the law is written clearly and well. So don't poo-poo the thought of why don't we just follow the rules if the rules are not written clearly or are written incompletely or bad. So let's workshop this. I really like what Commissioner Hardy said at the beginning about, I really like your opinion, so what he said. But we need to make allowances for people who like boats as well as people who don't like boats. So why don't we write new rules, write them clearly, workshop this, get this done right, leave a variance in there so that we can make an appropriate decision, because if something is written very exactly and that boat is a ½ an inch outside of the guidelines that are written exactly, and there's no leeway for a code officer to make an executive decision, then for a ½ an inch, that code officer has to cite that boat. So we need to allow some ability for code officers to make a common sense decision. So thank you.
Thank you. Bridget Earl, followed by Ted Johnson.
Bridget Earl from 2215 Vernon Street. This goes back to my comment earlier about lot sizes, that the planning and zoning is approving neighborhoods with small lots with little distance between homes, like the 45-foot front lots at Lake Cove, and then they only have 5 feet between. Our lots, when they built Vernon Heights, we were required to have 75 feet lots. We have to have 15.5 feet, which is what the code says, between homes. So when we're looking at adding new developers, we need to be looking at this because we want the boat community. We want our people. Commissioner Hardy said at our Vernon Heights, he wanted people who had more money. Well, you don't get people with more money making matchbox homes. So we need the land so the people can have their boats and they can look and enjoy it. So we need to, when we're looking at developments, we need them. This is a waterfront property. We need to have the boats. Without the boats, what are we going to do? Look at each other?
Ted Johnson, followed by Richard Curcio.
You could use your title, Commodore.
What's that?
You have to use Commodore.
Quiet on the dais.
Commodore Ted Johnson. 802 South Palmway. I heard some examples of buying a 40-foot boat to put in front of it, on a 25-foot lot, and people that have enough money to buy a boat can pay for storage. I rode my bike through some lesser neighborhoods than ours. Ours have big lots. I have access from 3 streets. I can park 12 boats in my backyard. But the 25-foot lots are famed cottages. People who, the lots that don't have alley access, it's a lot of people who might own a jet ski or a small fishing boat with a 10 horsepower on it. They need to be part of our waterfront community as well. They can come down and use our boat ramp. I don't think we're talking about, I have almost a 40-foot boat. It ain't going in my front yard. It's not even going in my backyard. We're not talking about the big guy, the people with money here. We're talking about people who want a little boat, and for whatever reason, they don't have room to store it except in their front yard. They screen it off, and I really don't think anyone's going to be offended. I think camping trailer is another good example, utility trailer. As I rode my bike through these neighborhoods, west of Federal, I thought, there are a lot of choices here, and so I'm lucky, but I shouldn't be the only one who can have a boat. I don't think there is a storage lot for boats in Lake Worth. I think it'd be nice if Lake Worth would provide a storage lot. One could pay for the season and have a place down by the boat ramp to store the boats. That lot is almost never full or anywhere near full. We could probably make more revenue by putting in secure boat storage down there than we're making now. So I don't think it's helpful to look at the big boat, the people with money.
Thank you.
There's a lot of other stuff happening. Small sailboat even, by golly, somebody might want in the front yard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard Garcia, followed by Martin Wellfeld.
Madam Mayor, I have nothing more to add. Nothing to say.
Martin Wellfeld, followed by, and I'm sorry, I can't.
Cheryl Rashkin.
Cheryl Rashkin, oh.
Hi, Marty Wellfeld, 829 North Lakeside. I no longer have a dog in the fight. I had both the first and second happiest days in the life of a boat owner years ago. And talking about people with boats with money, I discovered that one of the best ways to get rid of some of that excess money is to have that boat. So I'm clean and sober from boats. But at any rate, when you get involved with regulations and you encounter a surprise, it's seldom a pleasant one. A couple of things concern me. We're talking about the boats that go in front of a house, and I don't care one way or another, I'll tell you that. But I understand it has to be on a solid surface. So I would ask if we have to see a homeowner install, let's say, a 25-foot by 12-foot concrete pad in front of their house, if that violates the guidelines for permeable surface, are they going to get some forgiveness on that? Or is that going to be the catch-22 that jumps up and bites them? Another item, I don't know how many of you all took trigonometry in high school and whether or not you liked it, but I'm hearing references to plantings for screening. That's fine. I assume fencing would be fine also. There are, of course, height limitations regarding fencing, and even if it was all other going to be plants, you're probably going to want to have a gate in the front yard, and I don't think we're going to permit 15-foot tall wooden gates in driveways. The fact of the matter is that if you have something like an 18-foot long boat, by the time you put that on a trailer, the top of that windshield is going to be visible over any fence that is currently permittable in Lake Worth if you are standing on the sidewalk and, let's say, roughly 5 feet 10, 6 feet tall, given the height of your eyes and the angle over the boat. So there's something that I haven't heard concerned, and that's one of those things that I think could jump up and bite the boat owners and embarrass the city, and I think we ought to talk about that. Thank you.
Cheryl Rashkin, Peggy Fisher.
Good evening. I thought I scribbled rather well tonight. Cheryl Rashkin, 1302 South Palm Way. Good evening. I live in a neighborhood that I have 2 front yards because I live with my mailbox on Palm Way, but I also have the street behind me, which is South Lakeside. So I actually have 2 different streets. So we have a rather large recreational vehicle in our second front yard, which we consider our backyard. We have a fence and it is screened, but we still get complaints we used to get complaints from neighbors because they didn't like seeing it. Now, recreational vehicles like ours that we tow it behind my husband's truck, it has 6 wheels and it stands a little over 12 feet high. Bobby will probably correct me later. But because of that, you can see it because I can't have a fence where I'm at because I also have a side yard, which is 13th Avenue South, that you can see you can't have a fence any higher than I think it's 8 feet. Well, that's the height of my fence. So now I'm getting ready to put more screening in with more areca palms and other types of trees and things. But I have a lot of neighbors that they don't have the same ability that I have because I have the large area. I have a large lot. But we have some neighbors who live on alleyways that they can't get to their backyard because of different things that have been changing over the years with city guidelines, city stuff. And we understand that. But in our neighborhood, I don't think we have any bad boats or RV vehicles in the front yards. But I think the variance process is really good. But keep it away from the historic board. Boats are not historic, or neither are RVs. So thank you.
Thank you. Peggy Fisher, followed by Retha Lowe, and then Carla Bloxon.
Peggy Fisher, 508 North A Street. I know there's more in this item than boats, right? There is more than boats in this. And one of the questions was how many code complaints? Well, this is a boat in my neighborhood. This is a car parked on the front of a house, has been there since the beginning of July on A Street. Anybody driving by gets to see it. That's our type of boats. So if we have codes and you ask about code complaints, let's deal with the regulations we have. If there are regulations about boats and where they're supposed to be and how they're supposed to be screened, then make code enforce it. Either we put these laws on because we want to have a certain look, or we just get rid of them because we don't care whether they park them on the front yard, whether they park 3 cars in the front yard on the grass, whether they park a trailer with jet skis in the front yard. The whole point is enforce what you have said are laws that you want on this city's books. And like I said, I think there's more than just boats on this ordinance that would have been worthwhile having a little bit of a discussion about. Thank you.
Retha Lowe, 2. Miss Carla. Just hold it. I think it'll be easier. I don't think it's moving.
My name is Carla Bloxon at 1802 Pierce Drive. I've been sitting here listening to this discussion about this ordinance, and what it has become is the people who think that we should allow a variance or not allow a variance. The issue really is whether or not the staff should be involved in an administrative process. You have a variance, you have a law, you have a way to remedy the situation for a person who has a problem. But you can't keep letting staff handle all of these issues. Staff is overworked. And they really, I don't think that they really know whether or not your boat is slightly larger, less larger, and why would you ask them to do that? You have code compliance who can handle this issue, who that's their job. That's not staff's job. They have enough to do already. But when you're talking about this issue, it's not just boats, it's recreational vehicles. I live in Vernon Heights. We've had people who park their recreational vehicle that is almost as large as from their house in front of their house. Well, I'm president of the Homeowners Association, and yes, we're citing them because that's not what we want in our neighborhood. I'm not against voters. I'm saying remove staff from this issue. Handle the issue with code enforcement and they'll do it. And the lady who has had her boat there for 15 years, the reason that she's been able to do it is because we haven't been enforcing it. It's not that the law hasn't been on the books, and she's coming to you to ask for a variance because she knows that what she's doing currently is not correct. All we're asking is people to follow the law that we already have. and move staff out of that business. If you want a variance, if I bought a boat, I'm going to the proper people to get my variance if I need it. That's all we're asking you to do, is handle your business in a proper way, and don't keep saying, I'm going to get a subjective person. And staff changes over the years. So the person who liked you 4 years ago may not be the person making that subjective decision now. But the Planning and Zoning Board, they are responsible and they have to answer to their bosses. So they're not going to be as quick, and they may be, but I doubt it, be as quick to have a personal opinion as to whether or not you should have a variance. But staff might. And it's just unfair to them, and I think that we're just asking them to do too much. You know, and also when you do an administrative staff decision.
You beeped. Thank you. Any more cards?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I'm just gonna go back to the same thing. These are rules, these are laws that existed, and I think that, you know, we've been flexible. The problem is that staff has not enforced these rules for an awfully long period of time. People, somebody who lived there for 13 years, 14 years, whatever. I mean, the question comes into play, okay, I moved into a house. Can I operate a business out of this house? Say I own a roofing company, right? And I work out of the house. Do you know that you're supposed to have a license, an occupational license from the city of Lake Worth? Even if you're just working out of your house and you have a business, you're required to carry an occupational license, not only from the city of Lake Worth, but with the county. I didn't know that. Do you know how many people are operating illegally out of their home, their own private businesses? Do you know when you purchase a house and you have a boat, you're required to look at those laws to see, can I have a boat? Do you know that our assistant city manager did not move to the city of Lake Worth because his boat was too big? He moved out to Loxahatchee or the Acreage and bought a house out there.
I thought it was in Fort Myers.
I mean, these rules exist. When you make a purchase of that kind, you make a purchase of a house, you start a business, you do whatever, you look at what's going on. You can't say, oh, I didn't know. I've had it all this amount of time and I didn't know. These laws exist. They're on the books in every community, in every town, for every major investment. So I don't buy the argument that I didn't know. I get the fact that it's inconvenient. I get the fact that staff hasn't enforced it in a long time, but these rules exist. They have existed for an awful long period of time. And again, the problem is that it's not the people having the boats, it's the problem that people have taken the fact and have gone that extra mile, have left them in the road, have left them in the center of the thing, have put them on their lawns, have put them on this. And then you get subjective. You say, hey, is this guy who's got a lot of money in a nice boat, he's got the 41-foot Donzi, and it looks great, and everyone likes it in his neighborhood. So is that to say that the guy who can't afford a nicer boat and has a boat built in 1954 that's kind of run down, but he puts his elbow grease into it every weekend, he has any less of a chance? We don't like his boat because his boat is old. I mean, it gets so subjective when you're creating and trying to really level out the playing field and creating a rule that adheres to everybody's likes, dislikes, lifestyles, economy, you know, what they're facing against. We're just trying to create something that is less subjective, more open, and easier to adapt with to try to allow things to happen. But again, not take advantage of the system, not ignore the fact that there are rules that exist that need to be adhered to. We're just finally enforcing some of these rules in some of these places, and everyone's going, ooh-ah! I didn't have that. I didn't have that. It's not about that. We all want our neighborhoods to be nice and clean and kept up and no crime and this and that. But, you know, I think you all have valid points. I like what everyone had to say today. And again, trying to create one specific law that fits every person's lifestyle is close to impossible. And yet that's what we try to do here every single week. Commissioner Hardy.
Yeah, I just would like to say that this isn't about whether or not we enforce the rules that we already have, right? We're not here having a discussion about whether or not we should enforce the rules about boat storage. We're here having a discussion about whether or not we should change the rules about boat storage from what they were, which was the status quo, to something else. And we had that discussion without workshopping what it would look like to change it from the status quo to something else. I have, you know, honestly, I don't feel too strongly one way or the other. I think that if you're going to change the status quo, you should workshop that. We didn't workshop it. Now we're talking about workshopping going back to the status quo. That we're doing it completely backwards, right? And so, you know, honestly, taking the variance, and Ms. Blockson made a great point. This isn't about whether or not we should allow a variance process, right? This is about whether, like, who can you go to for a variance process. I favor residents having two options because one's quicker than the other. And we talk about staff being subjective. sometimes boards can also be capricious. That's happened before. We've all seen boards behave in a capricious manner, right? And that's sometimes where boards can get in trouble. I prefer people having two options instead of one. And again, it just goes back to, from what position are we starting here, right? Right now, we're starting from the position of let's change it and then workshop to see if we want to go back to the status quo. I think that's backwards. We should keep it and workshop whether or not we want to change it.
Commissioner
That
Maxwell?
to me makes more sense.
Just want to remind everybody that no matter what happens here with this vote this evening, there is a process to get a variance. That's the bottom line. There is a process to get a variance. We're not taking, if it goes this way, we're not taking away a variance option. The option is there for folks to get a variance. I think everybody needs to understand that. Please do not leave here tonight thinking that there's no option available to you. And I want to call the question.
Question has been called. Do I have a second to call the question?
Second.
Second. All those in favor of calling the question state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. We've got a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Nay. Motion carries 4-1. Thank you very much. Moving on to new business. Designate a voting delegate for the business meeting. Entertain a motion and a nomination.
I nominate Vice Mayor.
Vice Mayor's been nominated. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, I'm sorry. Was there a comment card on that? I just want to make sure for the record. Oh, good. We didn't go over.
No, there's not on 12A. No, ma'am.
Okay, moving on to discussion. Seeking commission direction for ballot language to change the charter to allow building height of 150 feet west of I-95.
Move the table.
Move to table?
Second.
Second. Got a motion to move to table and a second to move to table. All those in favor of moving to table state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. Moving on to item K. This comes off the consent agenda. Consent agenda was item K, which is a resolution celebrating 50 years of home rule for the Florida Constitution. Vice Mayor, you pulled these items. If you want to give us a brief rundown.
Yes, I just wanted to point out that it's 50 years of home rule. For the last couple of years, the Florida League of Cities, the Palm Beach County League of Cities, the National League of Cities, with everyone's help up here, thank you, Commissioner Hardy, trying to hold on to home rule. What home rule means in a nutshell for you is Tallahassee and Washington for years have tried to take away the home rule, which gives us the ability to make decisions for the small towns on your behalf. And we were able to fight it this year. We will continue to fight it every year. There are, especially in Tallahassee, there are representatives in Tallahassee that continue to try to take away home rule, meaning that they want to make decisions from Tallahassee and Washington with one stroke of the brush. And we argue that each town is individual to itself and that we should be making those decisions on your behalf. So once again, we won. Again, this year, we'll keep fighting the fight. But this year at the Florida League of Cities, that's coming up in August, we'll be celebrating 50 years of home rule and continuing to fight the fight.
As that's not something that requires a vote on that, so how would you want to react to that? We accept the information as presented.
And I pulled it, so motion to approve.
Motion to approve, do I have a second?
So moved.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item N would require a vote purchase agreement with Verizon to provide phone and
So
cell
moved.
smart.
Wait. There are.
They were just pulled from the consent.
They were pulled from the consent
Oh,
agenda.
N was pulled as well?
N was pulled.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was just K, P, and Q.
No, K, N, P, and Q.
And Madam Mayor, if you will,
Excuse me, we need a second on that, Max.
So it was moved by Commissioner Maxwell, seconded by Commissioner Hardy.
Thank you.
And again, Vice Mayor, you.
I just
pulled
wanted
these
to
items?
take a moment to thank staff for moving this forward and seeing that Verizon is one of the better carriers. I can tell you during the hurricane, I have Verizon, and you know, I swear by Verizon now because my Verizon never went down in the middle of the hurricane. I got all your phone calls, I got all your texts, and there were
Me
quite a
too.
few people that did not use a Verizon, used other forms of communication.
That shall remain nameless.
And that were down for long periods of time. So I just want to take a moment, thank staff to go above and beyond and move us to Verizon.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve in a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Do we have any public comment cards just seeing? on that one?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, did you have something else for me that you're looking at?
No, I just wanted to say that Lee Binky, our new IT director, that's the kind of things, he's running out the door.
Thank you.
Yay, Lee!
It's one of the key positions that I've been lucky to fill here. And how long have you been here?
2.5 months.
He's been hitting the ground running and mixing things up and doing a great job. So I just wanted to recognize him.
I still have spam.
Welcome, Lee.
Thank you.
Spam is good.
All right,
With
item
mustard on a
P,
sandwich.
again, moved from consent agenda. This is the resolution encouraging action by Palm Beach County School District to address overcapacity issues at Highland Elementary and South Grade Elementary
So
Schools.
moved.
Thank you. Second, I'll pass a gavel and second that one. You're in charge. Did you want to move something?
She
I'm
passed
sorry.
it this way.
Yeah, I brought this forward. I personally don't feel this is the best way to represent the city and this dais. I feel that at any time the school board is open to conversation, and I'm concerned that we didn't sit down with the school board first and have those conversations. Our school board representative is here tonight, and I asked some specific questions to her, and I felt like some of this work was already being done, so I just didn't feel comfortable putting this on a consent agenda and not having the conversation. And like I said, the school board has always been open to our conversations. I know the mayor has a mayor's educational component, and she meets on a regular basis, and school board members are there. So I'm concerned that we, for lack of a better word, we're out of line in this way of doing business, but I'd like to hear from other people, and we have some comment cards.
Yes.
Commissioner Harden?
All right, so I wrote this resolution and I asked for it to be put on this agenda, and the reason why I did so is because there are two schools, two elementary schools here who are on the 100% or above capacity watch list, right? And that's Highland Elementary. They're 15% over capacity, and South Grade Elementary, depending on how you look at it, they're anywhere between 3% and 16% over capacity, right? And basically, they've been this way for a while, and until individual members of this board began to talk with members of the school board, it wasn't really within their plans to address the overcapacity within what I would consider to be a timely fashion. And one of the things that occurred to me is that, yes, while we individually back channel with members of the school district, and we're lucky enough to have two, we're lucky enough to have Erica Whitfield, we're lucky enough to have Dr. Deborah Robinson, both of whom have been really excellent school board members. While we have these back channels, we have not as a commission decided on what our priorities are when we go to the school district and ask for things, right? And so maybe one reason why these issues have gone unaddressed is because those of us, like as a body, we haven't made a decision to say, this is what we need from the school district. This is a priority. Here's the way that we would like to work with you. We haven't developed consensus on those things. Yesterday in our budget workshop meeting, there was an item that was excluded from the budget. It was a literacy coordinator position, right? We have yet to have a discussion on this dais about a literacy coordinator position. I understand that Madam Mayor, she's been very much in the forefront, talking with our school board members, with our mayor's education council. But as a body, we haven't developed a consensus as to what we would like to do. So firstly, I don't see the harm in meeting on a biannual basis, which means twice a year, with our elected representatives so that we can form a consensus as to what we need. What really would it harm? And I don't see, secondly, how we're out of line. There are no rules as far as how cities get along with their school district. I understand that the League of Cities have joint meetings with the school district as well as with the county commission. Why can't we, this city commission, have joint meetings twice a year with our two members of the school board so that we can communicate to them as a body what it is that we want from them? What exactly is wrong with that? I would like an answer to that question.
We actually had our member of the school board here, 2 months ago?
Right.
We could have asked whatever questions or expressed any concerns to her then, and I didn't hear anything mentioned at that time, but.
Commissioner Maxwell?
Commissioner, I'm sorry.
I did ask
Yeah,
a question though.
I just want to ask, being from the Northeast, that this whole school system, separate and apart from government, just doesn't make any sense to me. And but anyway, I just want to know, what exactly is it you want them to do? Do you want them to build more classrooms? What does this resolution speak to?
Yeah. So there are two options basically. They can build concretables. They can add to the school, and so like that obviously requires them to spend money. Another option would be to just redraw the boundaries so that there are fewer kids drawn to Highland Elementary and fewer kids drawn to South Grade, and that can handle the issue. They did that to Green Acres Elementary a while back, and that was accepted, and that solved their problem. That's the cheapest fix there. But, you know, the thing is, you know, you said, you know, what do I want? We as a body haven't determined anything, right? So, like, it would be great if we as a body can say to Erica and can say to Dr. Robinson, you know, after having a discussion about it, this is what we, the commission, not me as an individual commissioner or Commissioner Maxwell or Madam Mayor or Vice Mayor or Commissioner Robinson, individually we all have our asks, but we're not coming together and focusing our message and talking with the two representatives that we have on the school board. And again, I would ask this question, I would like to hear an answer to it. What exactly is wrong with having a joint meeting with our school district members? And if there's nothing wrong with it, and if we can think it can help us develop a coherent strategy on education, which we know is important here in the city, what's the problem with doing it? And I would really like an answer to the question, what's wrong? How is it are we overstepping our boundaries? What rule is there somewhere, and where is it written that we can't have a public joint discussion with the two representatives on our school board member? I would really like an answer to that question.
Madam Mayor?
I'm just gonna answer what I know from based on my experiences.
You didn't ask the question though.
I'm gonna answer the
Okay.
question.
I'm gonna answer the question.
I'm gonna answer the question. There's nothing wrong with asking for a joint school board meeting. The question is how you put something on the agenda. So you say the resolution encouraging action by the county to address the overcapacity issues at Highland Elementary and Southland Elementary School. Number one, I wouldn't put it on the consent agenda. I'd put it as an actual item on the agenda.
I don't make the agenda.
Neither do I. I would ask for it to be put on the agenda, and I would ask and do a presentation to the city commission saying, these are the items and the information that's been brought to my attention and the facts behind them that say, these are the issues that are going on currently in Highland Elementary School and South Grade Elementary School. The overcrowding issues are X, Y, and Z. As this part of this presentation and agenda item, I brought expert X in to talk about this, or the principals from Y and Z to come in here and talk and inform the commission as to some of the issues that are going on in our community so that we can all hear about them, learn about them for the first time, and then make a decision together that we can offer a resolution to the school board to get them to make solutions and create solutions for our city. So you creating an item to present to us, to show us what the problem is. I didn't know there was an overcrowding issue here, or I didn't know there was this. Present it to us to say as an agenda item, show us what the problems are so we can learn of them. Bring any people to the meetings that you think would be good, and then request if we can have, I know she's my neighbor, I know one of our school board people, you know, reach out to her, ask us and say, hey, we need you to carry our water for us back at the school board. We've got a problem here, and is it possible to have a meeting, you know, or do whatever, but not just say, I summon thee to do it and send this off and send a statement. That sometimes works, doesn't always work, but at least educate us so we can be on your side and carry your water with you and make decisions based on the best of our community and our families and our kids.
Commissioner Maxwell?
You know, I get what you're saying, Madam Mayor, but the other issue here is if that's the standard we're going to use, we need to be consistent with all the resolutions. Okay, and maybe we need to have this conversation in our visioning session, because, you know, you can't on one hand say, well, you know, on this particular item, you need to come in and give us a presentation, and other items, there's no presentation given. And the other thing we need to do is we need to be consistent, you know, and the things that we do up here need to be everything that we do, every action that we take needs to be consistent with the direction that we are headed as a community. Okay. On one hand, you can't sit around and talk about bringing, giving variances for apartments, for parking or whatever, and then turn around and complain because the school's overcrowded. Okay, that just doesn't make any sense. You can't, and don't take this the wrong way, Commissioner Hardy, but you can't throw out a welcoming city ordinance or a resolution and telling the entire illegal immigrant population they would come to live in Lake Worth, it's okay, and then complain because the schools are overcrowded. You know, you got to be consistent. You have to be consistent on what we're doing up here. You can't do one thing one day and then turn around and do this completely contrary the next. And I think we really do need to have a conversation about how we handle resolutions going forward.
Commissioner Hardy?
Yes. So the first thing I'll say is, and I'll piggyback on what Commissioner Maxwell said. Previously, I had never been asked to give a presentation about an issue which appears to me to be very cut and dry. There's a list of schools on the school district's website. It says what's the built capacity of the school. It compares the built capacity of the school to the actual enrollment of the school. If the enrollment of the school is above the built capacity of the school, and if there are no concretables or anything else to mitigate for that, the school is over capacity. That doesn't appear to me to be an overly complex concept. I didn't know that I needed to give a presentation about that, but the fact is, Highland Elementary is built for 1,035 kids. I think there are 1,256 some odd kids there. The school's over capacity. To me, it seems very cut and dry that we would not want the school to be over capacity. And we should not, in my opinion, have to say no to growth that's good for the city, good for our budget, in order, so that the school district can handle their issues better. We should ask the school district to handle their issues better, right? And so, to me, I'm sorry, I didn't know that I had to give a presentation that says we want to communicate with the school district that it's not okay for our schools to be over capacity. That to me seems to be not a controversial issue, which is why I asked for it. There's some information here. I put in the resolution that Highland Elementary is 15% above capacity, 16%, and that South Grade is 16% above capacity. When you don't take into the fact that they have these concretable classrooms, and 3% when you do, that's literally all the information that I need personally to ask the school district to bring the schools under capacity. Call me crazy, but I didn't feel it was a controversial thing to ask the school district to bring the enrollment at our school staff.
Okay, I have no problem meeting with the school board, and at this moment, Erica, can you come up? Because once I saw this on the agenda, it was concerning to me, and I called Erica and I said, what are we doing? And Erica, please introduce yourself and give your name and address.
Hi everyone, I'm Erica Whitfield, School Board District 4 representative, also member of the City of Lake Worth, 133 Duke Drive.
And when I asked Erica about specifically North Grade, she enlightened me that they were already moving forward with some thoughts and some ideas, and she was prepared to come back after there was some can you?
Sure, so let me talk to you a little bit about the overcrowding issues in the City of Lake Worth. I actually got numbers on all the schools in Lake Worth just so I could cover that with you today, and I wanted to talk to you quickly about that. So as you mentioned, Highland and South Grade are both over capacity. The capacity for Highland is, and this is capacity numbers, they're estimated based on how many seats should be in a classroom, but not every room is considered a classroom. So there is a little bit of flexibility within those numbers. So I don't want you to imagine kids in the hallway when I do say overcrowded. So imagine just on what we imagine the school should be at. So the school should have 1,072 students. They're currently at 1,233. Also keep in mind that these numbers are from the end of the school year last year. So we will have new numbers coming up as of the 11-day count, which will be in about a month. South Grade's capacity is about 715. As of February's FTE, it was 803, so that's also considered 115%. One thing that was really surprising to me was that Barton has a capacity of 1,400, which is a massive number for an elementary school. However, only 900 kids go there, so they're at about 64% capacity. North Grade is actually this year, as I mentioned at previous meetings, growing to become a K-8 school. That school is only at about 87% capacity. Lake Worth Middle School, 81% capacity, and high school is actually at 91% capacity. So you'll see the only two schools are over their capacity for the area. And then with Barton's numbers being so low, a boundary removal would be pretty easy to do. We could just work on that. The way that we do that is through our advisory boundary committee, lovingly known as our ABC committee. We each, like you, appoint someone to that committee, so I have an appointee on that. This is something that is scheduled and has been scheduled for the last probably 6 months to be on this year's committee's task list to look at. They will look at moving the boundaries, but also staff is looking at programmatic changes. So sometimes what they'll do is they'll change a program in a school so that they can move children based on the program. You know, if there's an opportunity for someone at a different school, they can go there instead of at the school that they're at. They're looking at the boundaries. And then we are, you know, with the 1 penny sales tax that we had, we have some money that is made for buildings. So they are currently looking to see if there's any room in that budget to build an additional building at Highland. We do own the land in the front of the school. We've owned that for a while. It has been cleared, so we could put a building there. We would probably move something that wouldn't make children go back and forth frequently. So maybe something like the pre-K program or something like that, so they don't have to cross the street. So there's options like that that are out there.
And that's what I was trying to get at. Just by having this one conversation with Erica, I learned so much, because personally, I'm not necessarily for redistricting children that English is not their first language, and walking to school is predominantly, you know, I'd much rather see some kind of building, or, you know, when I grew up, it was portables. You know, just by having this one conversation today, I got a lot of information. So I think that we can, you know, maybe do it without an ordinance and have those conversations. I'm supportive of you and any school board members or representatives coming in a workshop situation, and maybe with the mayor's council coming, and in a workshop situation with everyone there, we can all give our thoughts and ideas and try to come up with
And let me say, I'm absolutely happy to come to any committee, group meetings, whatever would be appropriate. As you know, I have been attending the Mayor's Task Force for the last 2 years. We've been doing that, which has been wonderful. Dr. Robinson, I think, came to the one before last. I think she'd be happy to come again. We are the school board members for your area, so I don't know if it's appropriate to bring the entire school board, but what we are trying to do right now is we are working towards what I think are really big issues within the city, which are really around preschool education and having our students ready to learn as they walk in the first day of kindergarten, which is not something that all of our students in this city really have an opportunity to do. The numbers are fairly low for Highland and South Grade, and actually Barton is particularly low as well. North Grade's doing pretty good, but the other ones are not at all. And so that has been something that now that we have seen these numbers, we have real data on this, and our task force has been working towards this under the direction of the mayor. You know, we will be coming back to that committee and bringing some ideas from our pre-K program. We have internal people that work towards that, so we're going to be working towards that. But if you want to have a formal meeting, that's something we definitely can do. I'm always here for the city of Lake Worth. Anything that you want to do or need, you know, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, I guess, you know, my question is if the vice mayor feels that he learned a great deal from Erica Whitfield right now, what exactly is the problem with having a public joint meeting with Erica Whitfield and Dr. Robinson on a biannual basis? If it's something that's edifying for us and if it helps us, what exactly is the problem with requiring the commission? And it's not just us. Right now, there's the political will among us, right, to, without a resolution, do this. But the same thing as we did with the rate parity ordinance, right? We put it in a resolution and not just simply stating it as a goal, because we didn't know who was going to be sitting in these seats in future years. And whether or not they feel the same way about education, they should be required to sit down, in my opinion, with Erica Whitfield or whoever occupies her seats in the decades after she leaves office. And they should be required to sit down with Dr. Robinson, with whoever occupies her seats in the decades after she leaves office. I don't see the harm done by this resolution. I think it's clear that having a school that's that much over capacity, it's at 115%, 116% over capacity, is not a good thing. I think it's clear that we would want them to act. I think it's clear that we should have conversations in public, in the open. The public is not privy to the individual phone conversations that we have with Erica Whitfield, or when we go out and have coffee with Erica Whitfield or with Dr. Robinson. They need to be privy to what our strategy is for addressing education here in the city. And I think the best way to do that is to really have a joint meeting where we can sit down and figure out what our priorities are as a board and communicate those priorities to our elected representatives on the school district, and where they, along with their staff members who are not here in the evenings when we have these presentations from Ms. Whitfield and from Dr. Robinson, we're talking about the area superintendents and the principals and, you know, some of these specialists, they should be able to tell us what we're not doing right, and it needs to be in public. Because we know that there are some things that we're not doing, that there are some experts in the school district who have some very strong opinions about what we could do, and yet the public does not know because all the conversations are happening in private on the phone over coffee in restaurants and offices, etc. These conversations need to be out in the open, and it needs to we need to develop priorities as a body. And I don't see really what's wrong with that. I don't see what's wrong with requiring this commission by way of a resolution to do that.
Commissioner Hardy, Commissioner Robinson, you're done?
Okay. No, I would like to say thank you, Erica, for being here. And thank Commissioner Hardy for bringing this conversation to this place. Yeah, I don't see a problem with the resolution. One of my hopes for the visioning session was to have all the schools in Lake Worth be A-rated. I would like to see the, we talk about growth and development in Lake Worth and how are we going to market Lake Worth. Education is foremost in attracting any families to Lake Worth. The fact is, we have people that don't speak English as a first language. That shouldn't be a detriment to education. It's a challenge. I would like to see the agenda, at least, if not a report, on the Mayor's Education Council. I assume that it's doing something. I'm concerned about the capacity. The penny sales tax is supposed to be used for the schools, and so is the lottery system, as far as that goes. But gerrymandering, to me, is not the solution to taking care of the overpopulation in the schools. Neighborhood schools are a positive, and if we start taking, because they're overcapacity, moving them to another school is to me not a neighborly thing to do. So I call it gerrymandering, and it's an easy way out. And building the schools that we need should be a priority. We need to. I know there's very little we can do to influence the school board, but we need to be doing everything we can to make them aware of our challenges in Lake Worth. And I don't think twice a year is too many. I hope something. I think we're all on the same page in terms of education. I hope so. A resolution to me is a good start. Please, let's continue the pressure to better our education in Lake Worth.
I'm fine with the resolution. It's not that. I've said this a million times, and maybe someday it'll get through to everyone. It's not what you say; it's how you say it. You know, and that's the only one thing. It's to say, it's like demanding a resolution that you must do something about this and whatever. When we have a good working relationship with our school board people, and I think that what you're saying for a resolution and to have those meetings is great. Remember, we can ask for a meeting. We're not a city that runs the educational system like growing up in New York. They're the separate board. They might say no. They might not want to meet with us twice a year. I mean, to mandate that we have a meeting X amount of times with the school board, well, let's just hope they come, and hopefully they'll come if we give them an opportunity and invite them to come and be a part of a discussion because we have concerns. And that's what I meant by the presentation. I didn't mean so much to have a slideshow. I meant by inviting the people in to talk about it, educate the rest of the commission here. But I support your resolution. I'm fine with the resolution because we have to address the crowding issues.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
One of the concerns that I had was around if we were to have this resolution passed this evening, could we have staff come that affect the schools within Lake Worth? Commissioner Hardy and I had spoken about this,
Yeah.
so that it wouldn't just be like maybe the 2 school board representatives for this area and then staff. I think that meeting would be easier to facilitate.
Totally.
Yeah, so just 2 things. The language in the resolution is pretty soft. It doesn't say, you know, the school district must lower enrollment. It says the city commission hereby encourages the school district to lower enroll. You know, we're not being, you know, overly forceful, you know, with the school district. And then as far as, you know, the language around the meetings, it doesn't say that we shall have a meeting. It says that the city commission hereby seeks to establish biannual joint meetings. And Commissioner Robinson said he doesn't think 2 is too many. I started at quarterly. I scaled it back because I don't know if Dr. Robinson and yourself would like to meet with us quarterly. I did speak with both of you. You did say that you would be very much amenable to meeting with us twice a year. And also in the, again, section 2 here, it says meetings in which the city's mayor, commissioners, and elected representatives to the district school board, as well as school district staff and city staff, shall discuss issues pertaining to the city's public schools and in which the city's residents shall have an opportunity to comment on the matters discussed. That's an important piece too. The people who are in this room who probably have thoughts about some of the educational challenges that we face do not have the opportunity to comment on the individual back channel discussions that we have with members of the school district or with members of school district, excuse me, you know, of the school board and of school district staff. It would be great. One of the benefits of requiring us to meet in public is that it would give the public an opportunity to be able to comment, and we can mine their genius as well as far as what we would like to see here accomplished in the city. So I recognize that we don't want to be overly forceful with the school district. I tried to put language in here that was encouraging rather than heavy-handed, and I really think that it's important that we bind ourselves and future commissions to do this and to do it in public. I don't see what can go wrong with it, and I see many, many things that can go right from having these meetings. And I really, really look forward to them, and I appreciate you guys considering this.
And I don't think anyone on the dais has a problem having meetings and taking into consideration, you know, the best for our children. Madam Mayor, did you have something before I go to public comment?
What's that?
You're good? Thank you for being here, and I would appreciate you facilitating that as soon as possible. Okay. Thank you. Going to public comment, Peggy Fisher, followed by Kathy Turk.
Peggy Fisher, 508 North A Street. It was said it's not how you say it, or it's not what you say, it's how you say it just a few minutes ago. Well, that applies to how you all speak to each other too. Because sitting back there, I was sort of put off by some of the comments directed at the originator of this resolution. And to say you don't know that Highland is overcrowded, then you didn't listen when the public came up here and talked about the proposed development, which is now underway between 3rd Avenue North and 4th Avenue North, that was going to pour lots more children into Highland Elementary. And residents stood up here and said, you're putting more children in an overcrowded school. So to say, oh, we don't know, I'm sorry, I just want to laugh. I really just want to laugh. Residents have been coming to you talking about the overcrowding and the perplexed looks. You're going to hear the same thing in just a few minutes, because we have said this to you, and I applaud you, Commissioner Hardy, for having enough gumption to put something forward that brought Erica Whitfield in here because someone else wanted to make it not good about having resolutions. Well, I've read resolutions on consent agenda items that were for millions of dollars. Those never need to be on consent agenda, but they keep going on there. So something that affects the children in this city that are future residents of this city, and we want them to grow and be positive, there shouldn't be any negativity to anyone about bringing that forward, or any questioning or any lecturing about how you should have done it. This is to benefit the children in this community. And if it benefits them, every one of you should be saying thank you.
Kathy Turk?
Hi, Kathy Turk, 901 North B Street. Obviously, Highland Elementary and South Grade Elementary schools are both extremely overcrowded. My issue isn't with this resolution. My issue is with the hypocrisy of it, because the same commissioner that brought this forward was a strong supporter of the Banyan Tree development, which is bringing 85 2- and 3-bedroom apartments 3 blocks down from Highland Elementary. The neighbors all rose up against it because of the overcrowded, underperforming school, the teachers, and the principal. This commissioner stood before the Planning and Zoning Board and talked at great length about how we needed this. He acknowledged that he was going against the will of his constituents. And when it came to the issue of the overcrowding of schools, he said, it's not our job to worry about how the school district does theirs.
Direct towards me, please. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I get to take all the heat. Oh, no, he does. Sorry. Direct it towards him.
talking to him.
Sorry.
So anyway, again, he said that it's not our job to worry about how the school system does their job. I find it an issue now that when we want 85 apartment units, then, hey, it's not our job to worry about the ramifications. But when there's an election coming up, quick, let's put out a piece of paper and hope it changes the optics. Thank you.
I see you have a light. I was gonna try to stick with the mayor's 2 passes, but quickly, Commissioner Hardy.
Sure. Let's talk about the supposed hypocrisy of my asking for this resolution, right? So years ago, and a lot of people don't know the history of that project. Years ago, there's a piece of property with a huge banyan tree on it. And the city commission passed an ordinance that allowed an employee of this city to go to that property, point to the tree and say, you can't touch it, without any due process whatsoever. The city was sued because we're taking that gentleman's property without giving him any due process. The city settled with the landowner and guaranteed the landowner the right to build 85 units on that location. So first of all, there was not a question, unless you want to go to court again, unless you want to dare a developer who sued us already to sue us again, there is no question as to whether or not we had to allow those units there. We were contractually obligated to give the developer the 85 units. Secondly, the zoning was already in place to allow the units per acre that was already there. So the second reason why we absolutely had to allow the thing to get built was because if we did not, the board would have been acting capriciously, right? When a developer comes in and they follow all the rules, you can't say, I don't like your project because traffic. That's not a part of our ordinance. You can't do that. Again, that's a Bert Harris problem right there. We would be in court with a developer who's already proven his willingness to sue us. We paid the guy over $200,000 the first time, and we had to give him the right to build the 85 units. What would have happened the second time? Here's the other thing. When you're a member of any board in the city and you wear the mantle of leadership of the city, you can't say that you oppose a project because it's affordable housing. There's this thing called the Fair Housing Act. It prevents you from doing this thing called housing discrimination. And that's precisely what a member of this board, who I unfortunately appointed, did when she said, I'm opposed this because it's affordable housing. The other thing is, if we have a problem with a school, what I did not say is that I don't think we should get in the school district's business. What I said, Mr. Vice Mayor, is that it's the school district's job to educate every single child that walks in that school. I'm a teacher. I teach at a Title I school, Roosevelt Middle School. There is right behind us on the other side of Tamarind Avenue, a very large affordable housing complex being built. We're not talking about 85 units. We're talking about hundreds of units. I'm going to tell you right now, the day that I allow it to enter into my mind that because some families have an affordable place to stay, my job gets harder, I need to quit ASAP. Because that's the day that I'm no longer responsible for teaching my kids. It's my job as a teacher to teach whoever walks in that classroom. And if I start saying, gosh, daggone, the city allowed these middle-class families to have an affordable place to live, my job so much harder, woe be unto me. The day I allow that to happen, I need to step down from my job. Okay, so, the idea that it's hypocritical of me to want families to have an affordable place to live, to want the city of Lake Worth to keep its contracts with people with whom we've signed contracts, to want Lake Worth to follow the law and to want our boards not to act capriciously, the idea that that's somehow opposed to me asking the school district to address this issue, on the other hand, it just doesn't mix. We can get this particular project and then turn around and ask the school district to address overcapacity at the school. You can do one and then the other, which is what we're doing right now. So imagine a situation where we both get this project and we allow 85 families to have an affordable place to live, and we get the over $100,000 a year in ad valorem that would come from this property, and we get the school district to address overcapacity. That's called a home run, and that's what I want to happen. I'm not going to turn down growth because of an issue that we can address separately, right? Whether it's traffic, which we can address separately, whether it's school overcrowding, which we can address separately. I would like to have both, and that's why I did it. There's nothing hypocritical about it. So that's, what I have to say. Again, I support us meeting with the meeting with our representative from the school district. I think it's important, that we again have these conversations in public, and that we bind future commissions to have these conversations in public.
Madam Mayor?
No, I just based on what Ms. Fisher said, I just wanted to make sure that I think her comments were directed towards me, so I just want to say that I support the resolution. I've said that I support the resolution. I think what the concerns are is that I wasn't at the meeting that was referenced in the comments. I wasn't at the subsequent meeting afterwards in regards to that. I do have regular meetings, however, with the school principals, none of which you brought that as one of their major items, as their top 2 major items to our meetings. Not that I didn't know that there were issues of it, but again, to have this discussion, I want to have healthy discussions about it. I just don't like when things are sensationalized to a point. Sometimes it feels that we have to make this big jump off a cliff or whatever, when can't we just have conversations about it, inform and educate one another and the general public, and then do something good, like send a resolution to the school board together to all do it. I want us to be a team, I guess, and it just feels that it just feels like there's all this stuff going on up here on the dais that I'm really uncomfortable with, and to be really honest with you, and I want to work together as a team here, but it can't be by grandstanding or anyone saying, hey, this is my opinion and I want to do that and this is my opinion. And I think that's where some of the moods and some of the attitude may have been that was referenced. But I want to say, I want us all to work together, and I want us to listen to one another, and I want us to listen to the public and to do those things. But we have to do it by working together and presenting to each other and listening to each other, and most importantly, listening to the general public. But that's if I came across that way, I'm sorry. I was trying to make it more about how I would have preferred it being presented for me, to invite the neighbor, to talk about it as a community, to educate me. I don't know everything.
Yeah.
Okay, Herman, one more.
In the spirit of working together, I would hope that I call the question to vote for the resolution.
Do I have a second?
Do you already have
Oh, you have to say. When the question is called, it's been done incorrectly in the past, we're going to do it just like we're following the time limit now. When the question is called, you need a second to call the question.
Second.
And then you have to vote on the question.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Of calling the question. Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous.
There you go.
That was a great waste of 30 minutes.
Thank you. All righty. Now we're moving on to, was another one you pulled?
Yep.
Q?
Q.
Q is the traffic signals at 10th North and North A Street,
Yeah.
and North D Street and 22nd Avenue North and North Dixie Highway.
Okay, again, I pulled the last one so we could have conversation about processes and procedures. Not everybody agrees, but just like I've been working with Highlands for years, and I knew, and we were trying to get things done. Again, there is a construction going on there. This is not first time we've talked about A Street. We talked about putting a, stoplight in the middle. We talked about enforcing large trucks on A Street, the new flashing light that is now a permanent light. I felt that, and I don't know, maybe staff can correct me, that a call to somebody could have changed that light. Maybe they changed it and during construction and it just didn't get changed back. Help me if I'm wrong, but I mean, here we are addressing these things.
Who are you asking for help?
I'm looking at Jamie.
Jamie, could you please step up, please?
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. Madam,
Oh,
Madam
we need a
Vice
motion,
Mayor,
sorry.
we don't have a motion
sorry.
or
So
a
moved.
second.
We got a motion?
Second.
There you go. We got a motion and a second.
Thank you.
You can't provide an administrative permit or a variance on this.
I have nothing to say. For
So
the
if
record,
you park a boat out there, it might slow things down.
for the record, Jamie Brown, Public Services Director, and Brian Shields, Utility Director as well. That light has been changed at A and 10th. Was that 2 weeks ago? It was like 2 weeks ago. Brian had started an email chain to Motozia Malturk, which is the Director of Traffic at the county, which I deal with on a monthly basis at the TPA. It took maybe 2 or 3 days.
So is there a need for a resolution?
Well, they did is on the north-south, they added 5 seconds onto that light, north-south travel, which decreased the east-west by 5 seconds. They're going to reanalyze that when school starts back again, and obviously when the construction comes to an end on 10th. But as of right now, per the county, it's working properly.
Okay, Commissioner Harvey.
Yeah, so there are a number of issues here. As Jamie mentioned, everything between A Street and Detroit Street on the other side is operating on the same system. So adding 5 seconds of green in one direction takes away from someone else's green going another direction, right? Basically, there are a few issues here. First of all, there's what FDOT is doing right now with their interchange construction, basically. So that light that you see there, which wasn't always in place, that you need to now go from from westbound to northbound on I-95, that light right now is permanent, right? It's going to be permanent. And the reason why that light is going to be permanent is because eastbound to northbound traffic is being prioritized because the queue is going into the through lane going eastbound, right? So I think it's important to communicate to folks from FDOT because there's a PD&E right now out and they're considering further alterations to the designs that they're doing right now that basically we want to prioritize our residents coming from Tropical Ridge, Sunset Ridge, and Vernon Heights, their ability to get onto 10th and to get onto I-95 and to allow them to make the changes that they need to make. The other thing is there is, and I'm speaking with a lady named Leslie Weatherall who works for FDOT. There are opportunities for cities to do projects that FDOT can execute with money that comes from us and grant money that comes from FDOT. I believe these are called like LAT programs, right? And so basically, part of this is setting the stage for us to ask the county and FDOT to help us solve this problem. There have been people have asked, has there been a traffic study done? Yes, there have been several traffic studies done. We did a traffic study in 2016 on 10th Avenue. That was 10th Avenue east of Dixie. FDOT did a traffic study on the whole 10th Avenue exchange in 2014. Basically, it concluded that A Street was the basically operating at the lowest level of service as you approach 10th Avenue, right? So basically, what FDOT found was that there's a constant traffic jam for people going from south to north approaching the intersection, and there's more or less a constant traffic jam from people going north to south approaching the intersection. So this is just, again, us asking formally FDOT and the county to help us out as we try to figure out solutions to this problem. And I don't see what's the problem with doing that, and again, with doing it as a body. Each of us makes our phone calls, but to people who are, more important than us and who have more power to handle these issues. But no one is privy to these phone calls. No one understands that as a commission, it's our priority to solve traffic here. And again, there is growth occurring along the A Street corridor. There are 100 units coming south of 10th Avenue with the Banyan Court development. That's 85 with adoptive families, 14 units of affordable housing there. There are 57 units coming online with Lake Cove. And basically, adding 5 seconds to the light is not going to mitigate the additional 200 plus cars that are going to be traveling along A Street. By the time they add 5 seconds to the light, you're going to add another 200 cars, and then it's going to be like, well, gosh, what are we doing? And by the way, seconds have been added to the light in years prior, and it's still a traffic jam. So as the city grows, I think we need to take a more comprehensive approach to traffic issues. And it's nice to hit a single every now and then. You just want to get on base. But in this case, what we absolutely need to save quality of life for the residents is a home run. And so that's what I would basically like to see, and this is kind of setting the stage. It's just us communicating with the county and with FDOT that we would like to see them prioritize us here. And by the way, we go back to the impact fee money bit, right? And the mayor knows this part better than I do because she sits on the TPA, which is formerly the Metropolitan Planning Organization. so much money leaves the city in impact fees, and so little money comes back, right? So when we send these things off to the county and we're asking them to help us address these issues, my hope would also be that maybe we can get some of that impact fee money back. And again, so.
Okay, and again, I have no problem with the ordinance, but I think we're looking at a huge, bigger picture that we need to sit down and have conversations with, because like you said, you have a lot of homes coming online in that area. Something's going to be built on 10th Avenue and A Street, okay? And I think we need to look at all that, but, you know, he's talking to somebody at DOT, you're talking to somebody at DOT, you know, it really should be you talking to staff and staff talking to DOT, so everybody is on the same page. But I think we need to, you know, look at having joint meetings and on a larger scale, because we need to look at the whole package, you know. I know those other 2 properties on A Street are for sale or can be for sale, so we could feasibly look at, you know, developing that entire corner and take it to another whole level. We've got another hotel coming in on the other side of 10th Avenue. So, you know, I think we need to look at the big picture, and we've talked about it for years, you know, the street calming that comes from the traffic into the neighborhood. You know, I think it's a larger picture. And you were
Well,
gonna say something.
being that, you know, we've got Lake and Lucerne, Dixie and Federal that are obviously DOT roads, and then 6th Avenue west of Dixie is county, 10th Avenue. You know, we deal with the county and DOT on a weekly basis. When problems arise, potholes, stuff like that within our city on their roads, we have to contact them. Transfield Services basically is DOT's contractor for everything that's west of Dixie. So we have constant communication with them. Just like the light issue, it's just a simple email back and forth and it's taken care of within a day. But as these things happen, that's the constant communication between staff and those organizations to make sure that they're constantly updating timing and everything else.
And like I said, I just think this needed to be a little bit more of a conversation than on a consent agenda. Did you have something else before I go to public comment?
Yeah, what I would say is this is another issue that the commission has known about for a long time, but we haven't, as a body, taken a coherent approach to solving traffic throughout the city. And there are 2 traffic issues. There's the speeding that happens along neighborhood roads. 13th Avenue North is a great example. It's the first through street north of 10th Avenue, right? We haven't developed a comprehensive strategy to apply traffic calming throughout the city, even though we've conducted studies on where traffic calming, you know, needs to go in the past. That was actually one of the first things I asked from you and Felipe several months ago, actually over a year ago. But we haven't had the money and we haven't had a process in place. We talked about that draft traffic calming process. We haven't been able to put that in place. And, you know, without having these discussions out in the public, we don't have them. I don't decide what goes on the consent agenda. So, you know, in this, I have no problem having an open conversation about this. You know, the other thing is staff, it seems, is very adept at hitting singles and doubles, going from staff to staff. I think some of the larger things, like for example, this was put in the FDOT interchange study, the possibility of turning the approach to 10th Avenue on A Street into a 3-lane where you have a left turn lane and a through lane coming in each direction. That's something that I think we would need consensus from this board to really do, or at least to push from us to really put something like that into place. And I wanted to create an environment in which we're all aware that this is an issue, in which we've all put ourselves on the record that we really want to solve this problem once and for all, and not have to revisit this issue a few years later after the 5 seconds, you know, that we've added to the light has been dissipated by the 200 cars of additional growth that have been added to the corridor. So,
Peggy Fisher, followed by Kathy Turk. Thank you, Jamie. Brian. Thank you.
Peggy Fisher, 508 North A Street. Thank you, Commissioner Hardy, for bringing this resolution. Many, many thanks for putting together someone from the county, someone from FDOT, into a forum that will be held next week at the casino building for the residents who experience this day-to-day to come and talk to those individuals. Now, I've stood up here for years and talked to whomever sat up here about A Street. I've said it and said it and said it. I've talked about A Street, whether it's North A, South A, not being a truck route. All of a sudden, 2 weeks, oh, we added 5 seconds. That's not going to solve the problem. And There have been many years of opportunities for staff, commissioners, to address this issue that impacts a lot of people west of Dixie. And I know we get sort of the second class because we're west of Dixie, because that's the way it appears and that's the way we feel. But I don't want anyone putting anybody down for trying to push this forward. When I've come here year after year and said stuff to different commissioners and asked for something to be done about A Street, the light used to cycle onto I-95 northbound to a red light. Now it's back doing it again and everybody's in arms. There's been the opportunity for staff in total to do what we're trying to do and what Commissioner Hardy arranged for the residents to talk to FDOT directly about these intersections and the county about these intersections. And any one of you could have done that together, alone. Staff could have done that for the residents of this city. Thank you.
Kathy Turk, followed by Mary Lindsay. I think she's left for the night.
3 times in one night. Kathy Turk, 901 North B Street. I have no issues with this traffic study. This intersection has been a problem for a while, and it was actually the #2 reason that the neighbors opposed the banyan tree development, because it'd be adding to the A Street and 10th Street issue. Where I take an issue is, why are we asking for a traffic study when our commissioner has already, he said he spent a month planning a town hall meeting at the casino. It seems like if we're going to have this town hall meeting, he's also asked that people bring their concerns and their creative solutions. You know, traffic engineering is traffic engineering. I don't know how creative we can get, but it seems to me that you have this town hall after the city or the county and the state say that they can't do anything. As Jamie pointed out, in less than 24 hours, they got time on the clock. I'm sure if we took that same month and we made phone calls and we pounded on doors, that we could actually see some progress going on right now. But instead, the taxpayers get to pay for this town hall meeting at the casino, the furthest point from the people who are actually affected by this intersection. And we get to pay for the air conditioning and the staff and the parking. And you know, in the end, it's more of a dog and pony show than anything else. Thank you.
Mary Lindsay, I think she's gone for the night. Carla Bloxton, followed by Bridget Earl.
Carla Bloxton at 1802 Pierce Drive. I am actually one of those people who are affected by the intersection of 10th Avenue North and 22nd Avenue North, Workmore. We have been, when we moved here 20 years ago, you could get out of our development fairly easy. In that time, we are at capacity of 110 homes in our development. We also have Lake Cove coming in with 50+ homes. Then you are, I assume you're in discussion with Lake Cove for Lake Cove 2, which is going to be 60+ homes. That is all in that small area where we live. We already can't get out of our neighborhood. We're stuck. At A Street, we sit for a while. Now we're taking that alternative route of going down 13th. Now, but that's creating a problem on 13th. So it's not just an issue of a few people that are dissatisfied about the traffic flow. This is such an issue that some of my residents are thinking of moving. And these are the people who pay taxes. You know, they work, they pay their property taxes, they care about their neighborhood, but they're like, we won't have anywhere to go. And for the city to sell city land, even after it goes for a referendum, to add 60 additional homes at 22nd Street in our neighborhood is ludicrous when you can't handle the traffic that we have now. We can't get out of the development in the morning. And these are people who have jobs to go to. I'm retired. I just wait and go at 10 o'clock. But we can't continue this process. We have to do more due diligence in thinking of the issues before we say it's okay for the developer to come in. And I understand Omari's situation, that there was nothing that could be done or should have been done. And I don't have a problem with that. But what I do have a problem with is that we don't make decisions proactively. We're always reacting to the person's complaint. I'm not here to complain. I'm here to say, what are we going to do? And this meeting is a good step. It's a good first step because it's going to give all the players a chance to talk. And that's always a good thing. but we need to know that you're fighting for us. If you added seconds on A Street, why didn't you add seconds on Worthmore and Dixie? You know, do the same for both entryways to the city. At least have the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Bridget?
Bridget Earl from 2215 Vernon Street. Like Carla said, it is a nightmare. And it's also, I have a business in the city. My guys leave the city to perform work for most of the time. It used to take them 10 to 15 minutes to get out of the city. It's almost 45 minutes from our shop on 5th Avenue G to get on 95. That is ridiculous. Now I'm paying them 45 minutes to sit in traffic for what, a 4 or 5 mile stretch or a 3 mile stretch? That's ridiculous. Never. Some of our guys have tried to now go up Dixie, get to Forest Hills, they can get right on because there's no stop to get on the right, to get on northbound. I don't know who thought that was such a great idea. I've been going to the Crime Watch meeting. Captain Baird can't stand that light. And he's ready to go to that meeting because he can't stand it. He said that light needs to be like it used to be, a push button light. The kids go across. And if he says, if me as the police captain in this area can't get it changed, there's something wrong with all of us being here. If the police can't, and then when they have an accident, it's another disaster. It's a big disaster. Then it blocks up. It has been in the morning. It goes all the way to Dixie when people are trying to get out. Because our guys come out 5th, go to Sunoco, come down, come up 10th, and they sit on 10th to get on 95. And that's just going north. That's not even going south. Don't even try to go south because then you got to get in the left lane and get through. Most of the time, the light changes. The people from A Street are still stuck in the middle of the road. So then you got to wait another light. And then that light goes and another light goes for them to go and you don't go. And that's what's happening. And if you as commissioners don't do something, I'm telling you, people are leaving. People who have good money is going to leave this city.
Okay. Commissioner Hardy, did you have another?
Yes. So, regarding the casino location, I didn't think it was a big deal. I think the property is underused. I thought it was a great idea to have the town hall meeting there. And presumably, if you're affected by this problem of traffic congestion, you own a vehicle and can drive the 1.5 miles from 8th Street to the casino building to get there. I'm not as svelte as I was. I once ran the distance in 13 minutes. So I don't think accessibility is a real issue there. I think it's more of a canard, a dodge. The other thing is, as regards to city-owned property, when I came to your meeting in June to discuss the unsolicited offer that the city received, I heard you loud and clear. The message from Vernon Heights was basically, we don't want any development around our area until traffic problems get solved. It was at that time that I told you I'd already been talking with the guys from FDOT and Dr. Gow from the county and County Commissioner Dave Kerner to try and arrange this, and I hadn't yet fixed a date. So again, and I didn't promote it in my liaison reports that thing snuck up on me. But it's the 26th, it's Thursday, it's at the casino, it's at 6 p.m. This is just an opportunity to get our residents in the room with people who can actually solve the problem. And I guess, my approach to traffic there are basically two approaches to traffic problems. You can try to keep them from getting worse by slowing growth within the city. Or you can try and directly solve the traffic problem by altering the physical environment in which cars traverse the city going in and out, right? So my approach is to do the latter because it allows you to grow the city. And, we're in this position. Yesterday we had a budget meeting and we all just kind of shook our heads and was like, wow, our ad valorem tax receipts only covered 25% of our general fund, right? I think everyone up here thought that was abysmal, and we're trying to get that to a position where we have more ad valorem tax receipts. And so if we can find a way to solve these traffic problems separately from stymieing the growth problems, it's, again, I've said this before, it's hitting the home run. And given where we are, I think that's what we need to do. We need to, pursue both. On the unsolicited offer, it has not been considered. It has basically been received and filed. And that's where we are at that point. So you don't have anything to worry about for there. That's what I can say about it.
Okay.
So
moving on, I just wanted to make a brief comment. Jamie, you're listening to some of these other issues. I have never had a conversation with you about these other issues. So I apologize that, you know, you have more than one commissioner, you have an entire dais, and I would have to think that, you know, Carla, I see you on a regular basis at some other things, and you've never shared with me some of the other issues. I know A Street, I know 10th Avenue, but I don't know what's going on more on those other streets that you try to get out of. So I've heard it for the first time tonight, I'm sure other people have, but also staff has heard it. So Jamie, I would assume you're going to move forward even before the meeting at the beach and start talking to DOT if you haven't already on some of these other issues.
And again, we're talking about two different agencies here.
You need to go on microphone, Jamie. Can you come up, please?
Are you really yelling? Yeah, you explained something to me today that I didn't know. There's two different agencies, one east of Dixie, one west of Dixie.
But not just that, but you've got the county and then you've got DOT as well. They both have different processes, different things you have to go through for different outcomes of what you're trying to do. There are different studies that are done. There's a whole 6 years now for DOT before they even do any kind of project at all. There's PD&E studies, there's step, all the stuff that has to happen. Traffic calming, all kinds of stuff there's a huge process that goes with all this. So by myself and Brian contacting the county for that particular light, because 22nd's not the county, that's DOT. So that's a completely separate process altogether. 13th and Dixie?
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What was the 13th and, I'm sorry.
It's speeding. Yeah.
Now, because 22nd, which is Worthmore, is always backed up. A is always backed up. So now you're having more people speeding on 13th because that's the least busy street. But if we could have something done, so who owns the light at Worthmore and Dixie?
Anything on Dixie is going to be DOT, FDOT.
So are you saying that we can't ask them to change the light?
Oh, we can put in requests for all kinds of things. I'm just saying there's a different process that you have to go through, whether it's DOT or the county. And we have started many processes with DOT. You have to understand there is a time frame, and the county is a lot easier to get stuff done through because, like I said, it only took, you know, it wasn't a long time to get some things changed on A Street, but DOT is a whole different story.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and close this up. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Did I hear all 5? Mr. Mack?
Did you vote? I'm sorry. Okay,
Okay,
5-0.
motion carries. Thank you.
All right, and that was Q, right?
Yes, that was it.
All right, moving on to the electric utility. Who's here from electric?
Mr. Gill.
We've got a motion on the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. There was no public comment cards, just for the record on that?
No.
Consent agenda item?
No.
There we go. Moving on to new business, task order number 1, power engineers for services related to generation and transmission. Moved by Commissioner Maxwell. Do I have a second? Hello?
Second.
There you go. Thank you. Did you want to talk about this, Walt?
I'm actually going to turn this over to, for the record, Walt Gill, Assistant Director of Electric Transmission Distribution. I'm going to turn this over to Brian King, our Assistant Director of Generation. He is very versed on this project.
Okay, excellent. Please, welcome.
Hey, Brian.
Good evening, Brian King, Assistant Director of Generation. So this Power Engineers project, this GTIP project, is our Generation Transmission Improvement Plan. And so Power Engineers has been selected through an RFQ to evaluate the future of the city's generation. They're going to evaluate multiple options, and they're going to look at it at a long-term forecast, not just what's right for today, but what's right for the next 10 or 20 years. So that's what they will be undergoing under this task order.
Okay, any questions? Seeing there are none, are there any public comment cards?
No, Madam. How long is it going to take?
Commissioner Robinson?
Sorry.
Sorry.
I expect them to be done with their first round of evaluations by the end of August or early September at the latest.
Okay. Got a motion on the floor in a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Keep the lights on.
City Attorney, do you have anything?
No report.
City Manager, do you have anything?
Yes, Madam Mayor. a couple of items. Unfortunately, I let Bruce go. He was sitting here as the finance director, and it was getting a little long, but I just wanted to make sure everybody had a chance to meet Bruce Miller, our new finance director. I know it's late in the budget season, but we were excited to get him. He had worked previously at cities of Annapolis, Provincetown, and before that he was in banking. So he's been a great addition, and it's the first time I can say that I've got all the major players on my staff. So the management team for the city, from stem to stern, has all cylinders hitting, and we're seeing those effects already taking place in this short period of time. So I wanted to welcome him. I want to remind everybody that the 24th, which is next week, Tuesday, I have you all day from 10 until 5 here at City Hall in the work conference room. We're going to be doing a visioning session. And it's interesting. I'm sorry?
I believe it's in here.
No, I want to do it in there.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, clerk. Ignore the clerk, for the record.
Point of order, city clerk.
And I'll just say that we have hired a consultant, Kevin Knutson, who's come in. He's done several strategic planning processes with various cities, including West Palm Beach. And if you put into perspective, as a professional who's been doing this many years, when you see an elected body, a group, a board, start to sort of flex muscles back and forth and rub against issues and figure out how can we have conversations about things that affect the population. And when you start to hear your residents, the people that elect you, saying we want to understand what's going on, we've been so mired for years in the basics of getting the fundamentals down on this team. Don't forget that we have a plate load of activities and things happening that staff is stretched very thin doing all this transformational grunt work that's going to be going on for the next several years. But what we're seeing is a fundamental shift, I believe, into having those questions as where we're going. What's your vision? So we're calling this a visioning session. So it's part strategic planning, it's part visioning session. And hopefully y'all will take full advantage and bring to this session all the great ideas and the questions. And I think as y'all work together through some of these processes, and there'll probably be some more meetings to follow up, plans and areas of focus will start to come together where you can give staff, you can give me really good direction, and we'll be able to bring back plans of action and implementation, matching resources and timing, and start to be realistic about where we can go and the timing of that. So it's kind of interesting to see this sort of phase shift, this change in the organization, and I think we're probably maybe a little bit beyond the point of doing these visioning sessions, but it's time. And I know in my conversations with y'all, you agree. The 31st is also an interesting meeting that's coming up. It's a special meeting of the City Commission, but it's only going to be about electric utility. That's the core of all the items that you're going to be dealing with. And it's our intent at that meeting to ask you to create another hat for yourself, basically calling yourself the City Commission sitting as the electric board. As a policy board, that's another part of the operation that really needs your full focus in a timely fashion and on a regular basis. Decisions need to be made. You've got a lot of things happening that staff is really cooking on. It ranges from the power contract that we have to have in place by the first of next year to discussions on the outages and what our investigations have found with the two major outages that we've had. There's discussions about tie lines, the indices that govern reliability, what they are, how we're judged, how we grade ourselves, and how we rate. You need to understand all these things. So there's going to be quite a bit of information and presentation and discussion about policy on this most important of businesses that you own and represent for the ownership, the residents in the city. And it's going to probably be painful to some degree, but it's an important process, and it's going to require a specific set of meetings geared just for that business. So starting on the 31st, we're going to kick this off, and it's going to be a very important change in how we do business and how we focus. And I think people talk about transparency, it's going to really kick that up a notch because people are going to really know where they can come and listen and find out about what's going on with their electric utility in a meaningful way. I'll stop there. There's a lot happening. It is an exciting time to be in Lake Worth.
Absolutely.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Second?
Seconded.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Love you, thank you.
It's exciting. Yeah, they're that's the super small one. That's 0.38 millimeters. It writes very.
Good catch there.